awareness and sensitivity to others, which is enormously helpful at work and in personal relationships. The calming and relaxing effects of meditation also translate into increased emotional stability when confronting the inevitable stresses of life. Yet these are only incidental benefits. Fully developed meditation skills also give rise to unique and wonderful mental states characterized by physical comfort and pleasure, joy and happiness, deep satisfaction, and profound inner peace. States that can open the mind to an intuitive appreciation of our interconnectedness and dispel the illusion of separateness created by our egos. Furthermore, these fruits of meditation can be enjoyed all day long, for many days at a time, and we can renew them whenever we like, just by sitting down and practicing. I will describe these mental states in detail, and the systematic training presented here will lead to them with unfailing certainty. But even so, these peak experiences aren't the ultimate benefit of meditation. While bliss, joy, tranquility, and equanimity are delightful, they are also transitory and easily disrupted by sickness, aging, and difficult life circumstances. They also offer no protection from the corrupting influences of lust, greed, and aversion, nor their consequences. Therefore, these states are not an end in themselves, but only a means to a higher goal. That higher goal is awakening. Other commonly used terms include enlightenment, liberation, or self-realization. Each of these refers to a complete and lasting freedom from suffering, unaffected by aging, disease, or circumstance. True happiness, the bliss of perfect contentment, follows upon liberation from suffering. Awakening isn't some transient experience of unity and temporary dissolution of ego. It's the attainment of genuine wisdom and enlightened understanding that comes from a profound realization and awakening to ultimate truth. This is a cognitive event that dispels ignorance through direct experience. Direct knowledge of the true nature of reality and the permanent liberation from suffering describes the only genuinely satisfactory goal of the spiritual path. A mind with this type of insight experiences life and death as a great adventure, with the clear purpose of manifesting love and compassion toward all beings. While this book is a kind of technical manual, it's also an artist's handbook. Meditation is the art of fully conscious living. What we make of our life, the sum total of thoughts, emotions, words, and actions that fill the brief interval between birth and death, is our one great creative masterpiece. The beauty and significance of a life well lived consists not in the works we leave behind, or in what history has to say about us. It comes from the quality of conscious experience that infuses our every waking moment, and from the impact we have on others. Know thyself is the advice of sages. To live life consciously and creatively as a work of art, we need to understand the raw material we have to work with. This is nothing other than the continuously unfolding stream of conscious experience that is our life. Whether we are awake or dreaming, this stream consists of sensations, thoughts, emotions, and the choices we make in response to them. That is our personal reality. The art and science of meditation helps us live a more fulfilling life because it gives us the tools we need to examine and work with our conscious experience. In other words, for your personal reality to be created purposefully rather than haphazardly, you must understand your mind. But the kind of understanding required isn't just intellectual, which is ineffective by itself. Like a naturalist studying an organism in its habitat, we need to develop an intuitive understanding of our mind. This only comes from direct observation and experience. For life to become a consciously created work of art and beauty, we must first realize our innate capacity to become a more fully conscious being. Then, through appropriately directed conscious activity, we can develop an intuitive understanding of the true nature of reality. It's only through this kind of insight that you can accomplish the highest purpose of meditative practice, awakening. This should be the goal of your practice. When life is lived in a fully conscious way, with wisdom, we can eventually overcome all harmful emotions and behavior. We won't experience greed, even in the face of lack, nor will we have ill will, even when confronted by aggression and hostility. When our speech and action come from a place of wisdom and compassion, they will always produce better results than when driven by greed and anger. All this is possible because true happiness comes from within, which means we can always find joy in both good times and bad. Although pain and pleasure are an inevitable part of human life, suffering and happiness are entirely optional. The choice is ours. A fully awake, fully conscious human being has the love, compassion, and energy to make change for the better whenever it's possible, the equanimity to accept what can't be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. Therefore, make the aim of your meditation the cultivation of a mind capable of this type of awakening. This is the perspective from which this book is written. I sincerely hope it will be your perspective as well. There's so much myth and mystery surrounding awakening that many people tend to dismiss it. Rest assured, it's a goal for everyone to have. Buddha said that with proper training, it should take no longer than 7 years, and can happen even more quickly. Here, you will learn all you need to know about what must be done, how to do it, and why. Think of this book as a traveler's guide, providing you with maps of the territory and detailed directions for getting where you want to go.
Okay, that's cool, man. All right, hey, well, that's cool.
A modern roadmap for meditation. This book is the result of discovering how few long-time practitioners have ever experienced any of the more exalted states of meditation, much less the profound realizations that it offers. What I learned is that even after many years of trying, people weren't making the kind of progress they should. The sincerity of their aspirations and the amount of time they spent practicing were definitely not the problem. What they lacked was a clear understanding of exactly which skills they needed to cultivate, in what order, and how to go about doing it. Put another way, what they needed but didn't have was a clear map of the process. It isn't that these kinds of roadmaps don't exist, because they certainly do, but they are largely inaccessible to most meditators. Some 2,500 years ago, the Buddha presented meditation training as a sequence of developmental stages in a series of verses known as the Anapanasati Sutta. Each verse describes one step in a progressive method for training the mind. Yet these verses are short on practical details, and so cryptic as to be incomprehensible to any but the most experienced meditators. Perhaps there wasn't any need for the Buddha to go into specifics, because at the time, there were many others who could interpret his words and provide clear instruction. Around 800 years later, the Indian monk Asanga identified 9 distinct stages in the process of developing concentration. 4 centuries after Asanga, another Indian monk named Kamalashina, who later taught in Tibet, elaborated on these stages of training in his 3-part Stages of Meditation, Bhavana Krama. Another invaluable source of information is the Path of Purification, Visuddhimagga, compiled in the 5th century by the great Theravada commentator Buddhaghosa. As all these masters realized, teaching meditation by stages is an easy and effective way to help someone achieve the highest goals of the practice. Unfortunately, these and many other excellent maps of meditation lie buried in the commentarial literatures of different Buddhist traditions. Considering the volume and diversity of these commentaries, and that many of them have yet to be translated into European languages, it's no wonder the average Western meditator remains unaware of them. There is also the issue of interpretation. A few people, other than serious scholars, are able to cope with the obscure terminology and complex language of dense texts from a very different time human culture. However, traditional meditation teachings can't be properly understood without some experience of the kinds of mental states being described. Unless these scholars are also serious meditators, which is often not the case, their attempts at interpretation will always fall short. The modern roadmap offered in this book combines experience, tradition, and science. It's a synthesis based on first-hand experience and expanded on through the shared experiences of many other dedicated practitioners. To make sense of my own meditations and find guidance about where my practice should go next, I turned to my teachers, the Pali Suttas, and the commentaries of several different Buddhist traditions. Over and over, these traditional sources gave me the information I needed and provided an appropriate context to fit the pieces together. By integrating this information and my own experiences with the insights of psychology and cognitive neuroscience, I've reverse-engineered traditional meditation instructions to create a contemporary map of meditation. It's divided into 10 progressive stages to be used in charting your progress. While the structure of this presentation comes directly from traditional teachings, Asanga in particular, the meditation instructions that flesh it out do not. Also, this book is a fusion of teachings from different Buddhist traditions. While it is entirely consistent with all of them, it does not reflect any one tradition in particular. I believe this is one of its great advantages. It brings together the Indo-Tibetan Mahayana and traditional Theravada meditation teachings and shows how each fills in the gaps of the other. The techniques presented here apply to every kind of meditation practice. Keep in mind that all these source teachings were intended for monastics living in supportive communities of meditators. There wasn't much need to provide basic instructions and practical details, or to give examples. This isn't the case for modern lay practitioners. Most are practicing with little guidance, and often on their own. Therefore, while closely following these original teachings, I provide much more detail and give examples. I have also added an extra stage, establishing a practice, to Asanga's 9 stages to help people with jobs, families, and other responsibilities navigate the challenge of finding the time for meditation in their busy lives. These and other differences in this book reflect the differences between practicing as a householder and as a monastic. To help you progress as a householder, I offer you a clear map of the process that describes the whole journey, step by step. What needs to be accomplished at each stage, and how to do it. What things are better left until a later stage, and what pitfalls should be avoided. Otherwise, the contemplative path can seem like traveling from New York to LA with directions like turn right and turn left, but without a roadmap or a description of the terrain. Some people might make it eventually, but the majority would get lost. However, an accurate map will let you know where you're at and where you need to head next. It will also make the whole journey much quicker, easier, and more enjoyable. A book like this inevitably requires its own technical vocabulary. Some of these terms are influenced by Western psychology and cognitive sciences, and a few come from the ancient languages of India, Pali and Sanskrit. Many others are familiar words you're quite used to hearing, such as attention and awareness, but I will use them in a very specific way. Taking a little extra time to learn the meaning of these terms will be immensely helpful. It gives us a precise language to describe the practice and understand subtle experiences and states of mind. I define these key terms as simply and clearly as possible, emphasizing them each time they appear in a new context. Putting this practice into context. The meditation landscape in the West is a vibrant but confusing place. Tibetan practices emphasize elaborate visualizations or sophisticated analytical meditations, whereas Zen strips meditation down to the bare bones, giving you minimal instructions like just sit. Some Theravada teachers emphasize rigorously cultivating mindfulness to the exclusion of stable, focused attention, while others insist that intense concentration leading to deep meditative absorption is best. Rather than argue for any specific technique, this book will help you make sense of all these different approaches without having to reject any of them. But to do this, I first need to clarify an important set of terms commonly found in meditation literature, showing how they relate to each other and the goal of awakening. These terms are shamatha, tranquility or calm abiding, vipassana, insight, samadhi, concentration or stable attention, and sati, mindfulness. Awakening from our habitual way of perceiving things requires a profound shift in our intuitive understanding of the nature of reality. Awakening is a cognitive event, the culminating insight in a series of very special insights called vipassana. This climax of the progress of insight only occurs when the mind is in a unique mental state called shamatha. Shamatha and vipassana are both generated using stable attention, samadhi, and mindfulness, sati. Although it's possible to cultivate either shamatha or vipassana independently of one another, both are necessary for awakening. Shamatha has 5 characteristics: effortlessly stable attention, samadhi, powerful mindfulness, sati, joy, tranquility, and equanimity. The complete state of shamatha results from working with stable attention and mindfulness until joy emerges. Joy then gradually matures into tranquility, and equanimity arises out of that tranquility. A mind in shamatha is the ideal instrument for achieving insight. Vipassana refers specifically to insight into the true nature of reality that radically transforms our understanding of ourselves and our relationship to the world. However, meditation also produces many other very useful, mundane insights, such as a better understanding of our own personality, social interactions, human behavior in general, and how the everyday world works. It can give us flashes of creative brilliance or intellectual epiphanies that solve problems or help us make new discoveries. These useful insights are not vipassana, however, because they neither transform us personally nor our understanding of reality in any profound way. The insights called vipassana are not intellectual. Rather, they are experientially based, deeply intuitive realizations that transcend and ultimately shatter our commonly held beliefs and understandings. The 5 most important of these are insights into impermanence, emptiness, the nature of suffering, the causal interdependence of all phenomena, and the illusion of the separate self, that is, no self. You can experience the first 4 of these insights using stable attention, samadhi, and mindfulness, sati, to investigate phenomena, dhamma-vichya, with persistence and energy, virya. The 5th insight into no self is the culminating insight that actually produces awakening, because only by overcoming our false, self-centered worldviews can we realize our true nature. But this crucial insight requires, in addition to the first 4 insights, that the mind also be in a state of shamatha, filled with deep tranquility and equanimity. For both shamatha and vipassana, you need stable attention, samadhi, and mindfulness, sati. Unfortunately, many meditation traditions split samadhi and sati, linking concentration practice exclusively to shamatha and mindfulness practice exclusively to vipassana. This creates all sorts of problems and misunderstandings, such as emphasizing mindfulness at the expense of stable attention, or vice versa. Stable, hyper-focused attention without mindfulness leads only to a state of blissful dullness, a complete dead end. But just as stable attention without mindfulness is a dead end, the the opposite is also true. You simply cannot develop mindfulness without stable attention. Until you have at least a moderate degree of stability, mindfulness practice will consist mostly of mind wandering, physical discomfort, drowsiness, and frustration. Like two wings of a bird, both stable attention and mindfulness are needed. And when they are cultivated together, the destination of this flight is shamatha and vipassana. Also, brief episodes of shamatha can occur long before you become an adept practitioner. Insight can happen at any time as well. This means a temporary convergence of shamatha and vipassana is possible and can lead to awakening at any stage. In this sense, awakening is somewhat unpredictable, almost like an accident. Although the possibility of awakening exists at any time, the probability increases steadily as you progress through the stages. Therefore, awakening is an accident, but continued practice will make you accident-prone. You're training your mind throughout the 10 stages, cultivating all the qualities of shamatha. As you progress, the mind inevitably becomes more and more fertile for the seeds of insight to ripen and blossom into awakening. The 10 stages provide a systematic process for developing stable attention and mindfulness
Stable
together
genius.
in balance, with shamatha and vipassana as outcomes. The most accurate and useful description of this method is shamatha vipassana meditation, or the practice of tranquility and insight. Again, the practice offered in this book doesn't have to be a replacement for other techniques, but instead can complement any other type of meditation you already do. You can use the 10 stages approach in combination with, or as a precursor to, any of the many Mahayana or Theravada practices. How to use this book. Here's a brief summary of the book's structure, so you have an idea where you're headed. It begins with an overview of all 10 stages and the 4 milestone achievements that mark your progress through the stages. Detailed chapters on each stage follow, with a series of interludes that come between the stages. The first interlude lays the groundwork for the practice. You'll be introduced to the model of conscious experience and learn about working with attention and peripheral awareness. The second interlude introduces you to the major hindrances and problems you will face in your practice. The third interlude builds on ideas you've learned so far to explain how mindfulness works. The fourth and fifth interludes introduce new, more in-depth models of mind, the moments of consciousness model and the mind system model. The sixth interlude lays the foundations for stages 7 through 10. The seventh interlude provides further refinements to the models of mind you've learned so far to help you fully understand subtle and profound meditative states. This book can be used in several ways. You can listen to the whole thing, or you can use it more as a reference guide, picking which chapters to hear based on the current state of your practice. Many will find the interludes of great help, but those less technically inclined may prefer to no more than lightly listen to the later interludes, just to give their practice some context. If you ever find yourself feeling adrift, uncertain about where the path is headed, the chapter to listen to again is an overview of the 10 stages. Together, the stages and interludes will lead you on a profound adventure of self-discovery and mental cultivation. If you take your time, studying the ideas and putting them into practice, you'll overcome psychological challenges, experience extraordinary states, and learn to use your mind with amazing proficiency. You'll discover an unprecedented inner calm and gain a deep understanding, even a direct experience, of ultimate truth. An overview of the 10 stages. The entire process of training the mind unfolds through 10 stages. Each stage has its own distinct characteristics, challenges to overcome, and specific techniques for working through those challenges. The stages mark gradual improvements in your abilities, As you make progress, there will also be 4 milestone achievements that divide the 10 stages into 4 distinct parts. These are especially significant transition points in your practice, where mastery of certain skills takes your meditation to a whole new level. The stages and milestones, considered together, form a broad map to help you figure out where you are and how best to continue. Yet because each person is unique, the route your spiritual journey takes will always be at least slightly different from that of somebody else. For this reason, we will also talk about how the process unfolds, how fast or slow you may experience progress, and what kind of attitude to have. The point isn't to force your experience to match something you have heard. Instead, use this book as a guide for working with and understanding your own experiences, no matter what forms they take. This chapter outlines the general arc of the practice, and the rest of the chapters provide the details. It will be helpful to revisit this chapter from time to time to keep the big picture fresh in your mind. The more clearly you understand the stages and why they happen in the order that they do, the quicker and more enjoyably you will walk the path toward happiness and freedom. How the process unfolds. Each of the 10 stages on the path to becoming an adept meditator is defined in terms of certain skills that you have to master. Only when you have mastered the skills of a particular stage will you be able to master the next stage. This is because your abilities as a meditator gradually build on each other. Just as you have to learn to walk before you can run, you must move through the stages in order without skipping any of them. To make progress, you should correctly determine your current stage, work diligently with the techniques you're given, and move on only when you have achieved mastery. Mastery of one stage is a requirement for the mastery of the next, and none can be skipped. Taking shortcuts just creates problems and ultimately prolongs the process, so they're not really shortcuts. Diligence is all you need to make the fastest progress possible. However, even though the stages are presented as a linear path of progress, the practice doesn't actually unfold in such a straightforward manner. For example, a beginning meditator will be working on stages 1 and 2 at the same time. As your practice progresses, you will frequently find yourself navigating several stages at the same time, moving back and forth between them over weeks, days, or even during a single session. This is perfectly normal. You can also expect to have times when you seem to have jumped to a more advanced stage, as well as days when you seem to have gone backward. In every case, the important thing is to practice according to whatever is happening in your meditation in the present. Don't get ahead of what is actually happening. On the other hand, once you have overcome the obstacles for a given stage, even temporarily, then you can work with the obstacles for the next stage. You will also notice that many of the techniques are similar in several different stages. A meditator at stage 3, for instance, uses similar techniques as a meditator at stage 4. The same is true for stages 5 and 6. However, the goals for each stage are always different. The secret to progress is working with the specific obstacles and goals appropriate to your current skill level. It's like learning to skate. You have to learn the basics before you can start doing triple axels. The earlier stages take longer to master. However, because the stages build on one another, the methods overlap, and the skills you develop in one stage are used in the next, you start making faster and faster progress. Advancing from stage 3 to stage 4 might take a long time, but progressing from 4 to 5 usually happens more quickly, and so on. It's common to have occasional or even frequent meditation experiences that correspond to more advanced stages. Even a beginning meditator at stage 2 may have experiences that resemble those of advanced stages. When this happens, you might overestimate your abilities and try to replicate the experience instead of working to master the skills for your current stage. Such experiences have no real significance in terms of your progress, although they do show you what is possible. Use them as inspiration while continuing to work toward mastering your current stage. Isolated meditation experiences can happen at any time, but if they can't be repeated consistently and intentionally, they are of little value. Once your practice matures, you will have the knowledge and skills to consistently create these kinds of experiences. The rate of progress through the 10 stages. Some books give the impression that it takes many, many years or even decades to become an adept meditator. This simply isn't true. For householders who practice properly, it's possible to master the 10 stages within a few months or years. What you need is a regular daily sitting practice of 1 to 2 hours per day. Meditation retreats are quite helpful, but ones lasting months or years are certainly not necessary. Diligent daily meditation, combined with occasional longer periods of practice, will be enough for success. That said, there are several factors that determine how fast we make progress. Some of them we can influence, others we can't. To start with, different people have different natural abilities for working with attention and awareness. Some lifestyles and career paths are more conducive to developing these skills. Also, some people are better able to discipline themselves to practice regularly and diligently. Regardless of your natural abilities, you absolutely must master stage 1, establishing a practice to make progress. Life factors and stressful events can also affect the process. Losing your job, the death of a spouse, or a health problem can set even an advanced meditator back to the earliest stages. In fact, almost anything that happens outside of meditation can potentially have this effect. This just serves as another reminder that meditative accomplishments, like everything else, depend on certain conditions and can therefore be influenced by worldly events. Another factor that affects your progress is the problem of compartmentalization. We have a common tendency to separate meditation practice from the rest of our life. If the skills and insights we learn on the cushion don't infuse our daily life, progress will be quite slow. It's like filling a leaky bucket. This may be one reason why some people consider long retreats the only way to make real progress. Retreats are certainly wonderful and can help bring your practice to a whole new level. Yet we can only experience the full benefits if the wisdom we acquire permeates every facet of our life. And that takes work. Otherwise, long retreats are like filling an even bigger leaky bucket. The most important factor for improving quickly is a clear understanding of each stage. That means recognizing the mental faculties you need to cultivate, as well as the correct methods to overcome specific obstacles. It also means not getting ahead of yourself. Be systematic and practice at the appropriate level. Just as a scalpel is more effective for surgery than a large knife, skillful means and positive reinforcement are much better for pacifying the mind than blind, stubborn persistence. Finesse and patience pay off. The 10 stages of meditative training. Here, I briefly describe each stage's distinct characteristics, goals, challenges, and the techniques for achieving those goals and working through those challenges. 4 particularly significant achievements divide the 10 stages into 4 distinct parts. 1 through 3 are the stages of a novice. 4 through 6 are the stages of a skilled meditator. 7 is a transition stage, and 8 through 10 are the stages of an adept. It is helpful to think of each stage in terms of the milestone that lies ahead. You will also notice a number of key terms. Don't worry if you don't know what the terms mean or can't remember everything being presented here. All of it is explained in greater detail in later chapters. The novice, stages 1 through 3. Stage 1. Establishing a practice. This stage is about developing a consistent and diligent meditation practice. Being consistent means setting a clear daily schedule for when you're going to meditate and sticking to it, except when there are circumstances beyond your control. Diligence means engaging wholeheartedly in the practice rather than spending your time on the cushion planning or daydreaming. Goals. Develop a regular meditation practice. Obstacles. Resistance, procrastination, fatigue, impatience, boredom, lack of motivation. Skills. Creating practice routines, setting specific practice goals, generating strong motivation, cultivating discipline and diligence. Mastery. Never missing a daily practice session. Stage 2. Interrupted attention and overcoming mind wandering. Stage 2 involves the simple practice of keeping your attention on the breath. This is easier said than done. You will discover that attention is easily captured by a distraction, making you forget that you're supposed to be paying attention to the breath. Forgetting quickly leads to mind wandering, which can last a few seconds, several minutes, or the entire meditation session. This sequence is so important it's worth committing to memory. The untrained mind produces distractions that lead to forgetting, which results in mind wandering. In stage 2, you only work with the last event, mind wandering. Goals. Shorten the periods of mind wandering and extend the periods of sustained attention to the meditation object. Obstacles, mind wandering, monkey mind, and impatience. Skills. Reinforcing spontaneous introspective awareness and learning to sustain attention on the meditation object. Spontaneous introspective awareness is the aha moment, when you suddenly realize there's a disconnect between what you wanted to do, watch the breath, and what you're actually doing, thinking about something else. Appreciating this moment causes it to happen faster and faster, so the periods of mind wandering get shorter and shorter. Mastery. You can sustain attention on the meditation object for minutes, while most periods of mind wandering last only a few seconds. Stage 3. Extended attention and overcoming forgetting. Stages 2 and 3 are similar, but mind wandering gets shorter and shorter until it stops altogether. The biggest challenge during this stage is forgetting, but sleepiness often becomes a problem as well. Goals. Overcome forgetting and falling asleep. Obstacles. Distractions, forgetting, mind wandering, and sleepiness. Skills. Use the techniques of following the breath and connecting to extend the periods of uninterrupted attention and become familiar with how forgetting happens. Cultivate introspective awareness through the practices of labeling and checking in. These techniques allow you to catch distractions before they lead to forgetting. Mastery. Rarely forgetting the breath or falling asleep. Milestone 1. Continuous attention to the meditation object. The first milestone is continuous attention to the meditation object, which you achieve at the end of stage 3. Before this, you're a beginner, a person who meditates rather than a skilled meditator. When you reach this milestone, you're no longer a novice, prone to forgetting, mind wandering, or dozing off. By mastering stages 1 through 3, you have acquired the basic first-level skills on the way to stable attention. You can now do something that no ordinary, untrained person can. You will build on this initial skill set over the course of the next 3 stages to become a truly skilled meditator. The skilled meditator, stages 4 through 6. Stage 4, continuous attention and overcoming gross distraction and strong dullness. You can stay focused on the breath more or less continuously, but attention still shifts rapidly back and forth between the breath and various distractions. Whenever a distraction becomes the primary focus of your attention, it pushes the meditation object into the background. This is called gross distraction. But when the mind grows calm, there tends to be another problem: strong dullness. To deal with both of these challenges, you develop continuous introspective awareness to alert you to their presence. Goal: overcome gross distraction and strong dullness. Obstacles: distractions, pain and discomfort, intellectual insights, emotionally charged visions and memories. Skills: developing continuous introspective awareness allows you to make corrections before subtle distractions become gross distractions, and before subtle dullness becomes strong dullness. Learning to work with pain, purifying the mind of past trauma and unwholesome conditioning. Mastery: gross distractions no longer push the breath into the background, and breath sensations don't fade or become distorted due to strong dullness. Stage 5. Overcoming subtle dullness and increasing mindfulness. You have overcome gross distractions and strong dullness, but there is a tendency to slip into stable, subtle dullness. This makes the breath sensations less vivid and causes peripheral awareness to fade. Unrecognized subtle dullness can lead you to overestimate your abilities and move on to the next stage prematurely, which leads to concentration with dullness. You will experience only a shallow facsimile of the later stages, and your practice will come to a dead end. To overcome subtle dullness, you must sharpen your faculties of attention and awareness. Goal: to overcome subtle dullness and increase the power of mindfulness. Obstacles: subtle dullness is difficult to recognize, creates an illusion of stable attention, and is seductively pleasant. Skills: cultivating even stronger and more continuous introspective awareness to detect and correct for subtle dullness. Learning a new body scanning technique to help you increase the power of your mindfulness. Mastery: you can sustain or even increase the power of your mindfulness during each meditation session. Stage 6. Subduing subtle distraction. Attention is fairly stable, but still alternates between the meditation object and subtle distractions in the background. You are now ready to bring your faculty of attention to a whole new level, where subtle distractions fall away completely. You will achieve exclusive attention to the meditation object, also called single-pointed attention. Goal: to subdue subtle distractions and develop metacognitive introspective awareness. Obstacles: the tendency for attention to alternate to the continuous stream of distracting thoughts and other mental objects in peripheral awareness. Skills: defining your scope of attention more precisely than before, and ignoring everything outside that scope until subtle distractions fade away. Developing a much more refined and selective awareness of the mind itself, called metacognitive introspective awareness. You will also use a method called experiencing the whole body with the breath to further subdue potential distractions. Mastery: subtle distractions have almost entirely disappeared, and you have unwavering exclusive attention together with vivid mindfulness. Milestone 2. Sustained exclusive focus of attention. With mastery of stages 4 through 6, your attention no longer alternates back and forth from the breath to distractions in the background. You can focus on the meditation object to the exclusion of everything else, and your scope of attention is also stable. Dullness has completely disappeared, and mindfulness takes the form of a powerful metacognitive introspective awareness. That is, you are now aware of your state of mind in every moment, even as you focus on the breath. You have accomplished the two major objectives of meditative training: stable attention and powerful mindfulness. With these abilities, you are now a skilled meditator and have achieved the second milestone. The transition. Stage 7. Stage 7. Exclusive attention and unifying the mind. You can now investigate any object with however broad or narrow a focus you choose, but you have to stay vigilant and make a continuous effort to keep subtle distractions and subtle dullness at bay. Goal: effortlessly sustained exclusive attention and powerful mindfulness. Obstacles: distractions and dullness will return if you stop exerting effort. You must keep sustaining effort until exclusive attention and mindfulness become automatic. Then effort will no longer be necessary. Boredom, restlessness, and doubt tend to arise during this time. Also, bizarre sensations and involuntary body movements can distract you from your practice. Knowing when to drop all effort is the next obstacle. But making effort has become a habit, so it's hard to stop. Methods: practicing patiently and diligently will bring you to the threshold of effortlessness. It will get you past all the boredom and doubt, as well as the bizarre sensations and movements. Purposely relaxing your effort from time to time will let you know when effort and vigilance are no longer necessary. Then you can work on letting go of the need to be in control. Various insight and jhana practices add variety at this stage. Mastery: you can drop all effort, and the mind still maintains an unprecedented degree of stability and clarity. Milestone 3. Effortless stability of attention. The third milestone is marked by effortlessly sustained exclusive attention, together with powerful mindfulness. This state is called mental pliancy, and occurs because of the complete pacification of the discriminating mind, meaning mental chatter and discursive analysis have stopped. Different parts of the mind are no longer so resistant or preoccupied with other things, and diverse mental processes begin to coalesce around a single purpose. This unification of mind means that rather than struggling against itself, the mind functions more as a coherent, harmonious whole. You have completed the transition from being a skilled meditator to an adept meditator. The adept meditator. Stages 8 through 10. Stage 8. Mental pliancy and pacifying the senses. With mental pliancy, you can effortlessly sustain exclusive attention and mindfulness, but physical pain and discomfort still limit how long you can sit. The bizarre sensations and involuntary movements that began in stage 7 not only continue, but may intensify. With continuing unification of mind and complete pacification of the senses, physical pliancy arises, and these problems disappear. Pacifying the senses doesn't imply going into some trance. It just means that the 5 physical senses, as well as the mind sense, temporarily grow quiet while you meditate. Goal: complete pacification of the senses and the full arising of meditative joy. Obstacles: the primary challenge is not to be distracted or distressed by the variety of extraordinary experiences during this stage. Unusual and often unpleasant sensations, involuntary movements, feelings of strong energy currents in the body, and intense joy. Simply let them be. Method: practicing effortless attention and introspective awareness will naturally lead to continued unification, pacification of the senses, and the arising of meditative joy. Jhana and other insight practices are very productive as part of this process. Mastery: when the eyes perceive only an inner light, the ears perceive only an inner sound, the body is suffused with a sense of pleasure and comfort, and your mental state is one of intense joy. With this mental and physical pliancy, you can sit for hours without dullness, distraction, or physical discomfort. Stage 9. Mental and physical pliancy and calming the intensity of meditative joy. With mental and physical pliancy comes meditative joy, a unique state of mind that brings great happiness and physical pleasure. Goal: the maturation of meditative joy, producing tranquility and equanimity. Obstacles. The intensity of meditative joy can perturb the mind, becoming a distraction and disrupting your practice. Method. Becoming familiar with meditative joy through continued practice until the excitement fades, replaced by tranquility and equanimity. Mastery. Consistently evoking mental and physical pliancy, accompanied by profound tranquility and equanimity. Stage 10. Tranquility and equanimity. You enter stage 10 with all the qualities of shamatha: effortlessly stable attention, mindfulness, joy, tranquility, and equanimity. At first, these qualities immediately fade after the meditation is ended. But as you continue to practice, they persist longer and longer between meditation sessions. Eventually, they become the normal condition of the mind. Because the characteristics of shamatha never disappear entirely, whenever you sit on the cushion, you quickly regain a fully developed meditative state. You have mastered stage 10 when the qualities of shamatha persist for many hours after you rise from the cushion. Once stage 10 is mastered, the mind is described as unsurpassable. Milestone 4. Persistence of the mental qualities of an adept. When you have mastered stage 10, the many positive mental qualities you experience during meditation are strongly present even between meditation sessions, so your daily life is imbued with effortlessly stable attention, mindfulness, joy, tranquility, and equanimity. This is the fourth and final milestone, and marks the culmination of an adept meditator's training. Cultivating the right attitude and setting clear intentions. We naturally tend to think of ourselves as the agent responsible for producing results through will and effort. Certain words we can't avoid using when we talk about meditation, such as achieve and master, only reinforce this idea. We often believe we should be in control, the masters of our own minds. But that belief only creates problems for your practice. It will lead you to try to willfully force the mind into submission. When that inevitably fails, you will tend to get discouraged and blame yourself. This can turn into a habit, unless you realize there is no self in charge of the mind, and therefore nobody to blame. As you continue to meditate, this fact of no self becomes increasingly clear, but you can't afford to wait for that insight. For the sake of making progress, it's best to drop this notion, at least at an intellectual level, as soon as possible. In reality, all we're doing in meditation is forming and holding specific conscious intention, nothing more. In fact, while it may not be obvious, all our achievements originate from intentions. Consider learning to play catch. As a child, you may have wanted to play catch, but at first your arm and hand just didn't move in quite the right way. However, by sustaining the intention to catch the ball after much practice, your arm and hand eventually performed the task whenever you wanted. You don't play catch. Instead, you just intend to catch the ball and the rest follows. You intend, and the body acts. In exactly the same way, we can use intention to profoundly transform how the mind behaves. Intention, provided it is correctly formulated and sustained, is what creates the causes and conditions for stable attention and mindfulness. Intentions repeatedly sustained over the course of many meditation sessions give rise to frequently repeated mental acts, which eventually become habits of the mind. At every stage, all you really do is patiently and persistently hold your intentions to respond in specific ways to whatever happens during your meditation. Setting and holding the right intentions is what's essential. If your intention is strong, the appropriate responses will occur and the practice will unfold in a very natural and predictable way. Once again, repeatedly sustained intentions lead to repeated mental actions, which become mental habits. The habits of mind that lead to joy, equanimity, and insight. The exquisite simplicity of this process isn't so obvious in the early stages. However, by the time you reach stage 8, and your meditations become completely effortless, it will be clear. While useful, the lists of goals, obstacles, skills, and mastery provided in this discussion so far can obscure just how simple the underlying process really is. Intentions lead to mental actions, and repeated mental actions become mental habits. This simple formula is at the heart of every stage. Therefore, here's a brief recap of the 10 stages, presented in a completely different way that puts the emphasis entirely on how intention works in each stage. Refer to the earlier outline when you need to orient yourself within the context of the stages as a whole. But look at the outline that follows whenever working through the individual stages begins to feel like a struggle. Stage 1. Put all your effort into forming and holding a conscious intention to sit down and meditate for a set period every day, and to practice diligently for the duration of the sit. When your intentions are clear and strong, the appropriate actions naturally follow, and you'll find yourself regularly sitting down to meditate. If this doesn't happen, instead of chastising yourself and trying to force yourself to practice, work on strengthening your motivation and intentions. Stage 2. Willpower can't prevent the mind from forgetting the breath, nor can you force yourself to become aware that the mind is wandering. Instead, just hold the intention to appreciate the aha moment that recognizes mind wandering, while gently but firmly redirecting attention back to the breath. Then intend to engage with the breath as fully as possible without losing peripheral awareness. In time, the simple actions flowing from these 3 intentions will become mental habits. Periods of mind wandering will become shorter. Periods of attention to the breath will grow longer, and you'll have achieved your goal. Stage 3. Set your intention to invoke introspective attention frequently before you've forgotten the breath or fallen asleep, and make corrections as soon as you notice distractions or dullness. Also, intend to sustain peripheral awareness while engaging with the breath as fully as possible. These 3 intentions and the actions they produce are simply elaborations of those from stage 2. Once they become habits, you'll rarely forget the breath. Stages 4 through 6. Set and hold the intention to be vigilant so that introspective awareness becomes continuous, and notice and immediately correct for dullness and distraction. These intentions will mature into the highly developed skills of stable attention and mindfulness. You overcome every type of dullness and distraction, achieving both exclusive, single-pointed attention and metacognitive introspective awareness. Stage 7. Everything becomes even simpler. With the conscious intention to continuously guard against dullness and distraction, the mind becomes completely accustomed to effortlessly sustaining attention and mindfulness. Stages 8 through 10. Your intention is simply to keep practicing, using skills that are now completely effortless. In stage 8, effortlessly sustained exclusive attention produces mental and physical pliancy, pleasure, and joy. In stage 9, simply abiding in the state of meditative joy causes profound tranquility and equanimity to arise. In stage 10, just by continuing to practice regularly, the profound joy and happiness, tranquility and equanimity you experience in meditation persists between meditation sessions, infusing your daily life as well. As with planting seeds, at each stage you sow the appropriate intentions in the soil of the mind. Water these intentions with the diligence of regular practice and protect them from the destructive pests of procrastination, doubt, desire, aversion, and agitation. These intentions will naturally flower into a specific series of mental events that mature to produce the fruits of your practice. Will a seed sprout more quickly if you keep digging it up and replanting it? No. Therefore, don't let impatience or frustration stop you from practicing, or convince you that you need to seek out a better or easier practice. Getting annoyed with every instance of mind wandering or sleepiness is like tearing up the garden to get rid of the weeds. Attempting to force attention to remain stable is like trying to make a sapling grow taller by stretching it. Chasing after physical pliancy and meditative joy is like prying open a bud so it will blossom more quickly. Impatience and striving won't make anything grow faster. Be patient and trust in the process. Care for the mind like a skilled gardener, and everything will flower and fruit in due time. First interlude: Conscious experience and the objectives of meditation. In this chapter, I introduce a basic conceptual model of conscious experience. You can consider this a map of the topography, the landscape of the mind, so to speak. The meditation instructions are like the roads allowing you to explore this landscape comfortably. However, remember that a map is only a representation, not the thing itself. When circumstances change, as your practice improves, you'll find yourself wanting a new map. This is why, in later chapters, I provide 2 additional, much more in-depth models of the mind for you to work from. Each map builds on the previous ones, and together they lead you toward the 2 major objectives of meditation practice: stable attention and mindfulness, both of which we will look at more closely in this interlude. A model of conscious experience. Consciousness consists of whatever we're experiencing in the moment. It's a lot like vision. Just as the objects in our field of vision change from one moment to the next, objects in our field of conscious awareness, like sights, sounds, smells, and other external phenomena, also arise and pass away. Of course, this field isn't just limited to what we perceive with our outer senses. It also includes internal mental objects, which come in the form of transitory thoughts, feelings, and memories. Attention and peripheral awareness. Conscious experience takes 2 different forms: attention and peripheral awareness. Whenever we focus our attention on something, it dominates our conscious experience. At the same time, however, we can be more generally aware of things in the background. For example, right now your attention is focused on what you're hearing. At the same time, you're also aware of other sights, sounds, smells, and sensations in the periphery. The way attention and peripheral awareness work together is a lot like the relationship between visual focus and peripheral vision. Try fixing your eyes on an external object. You will notice that as you focus on the object, your peripheral vision takes in other information elsewhere in your field of vision. You can compare that with your experience of attention and peripheral awareness in daily life, where you pay attention to some things while remaining peripherally aware of others. For instance, you may be listening intently to what a person is saying. At the same time, you're peripherally aware of the flavor of the tea you're drinking, traffic noises in the background, and the pleasant feelings of sitting in a cozy chair. Just as with vision, we're more fully conscious of the object in the focus of our attention, but we remain conscious of the many objects in peripheral awareness as well. When we shift our focus, what had been at the center of attention moves to the periphery. As attention moves from one object to another, from the conversation to the mug of tea, we become more fully conscious of each object in turn, while remaining peripherally aware of the others. It's important to realize attention and peripheral awareness are 2 different ways of knowing the world. Each has its virtues, as well as its shortcomings. Attention singles out some small part of the content of the field of conscious awareness from the rest in order to analyze and interpret it. On the other hand, peripheral awareness is more holistic, open, and inclusive, and provides the overall context for conscious experience. It has more to do with the relationships of objects to one another and to the whole. In this book, whenever the term awareness is used, it refers to peripheral awareness. It never means attention. The distinction between the 2 is key. The failure to recognize this distinction creates considerable confusion. In meditation, meditation, we work with both attention and peripheral awareness to cultivate stable attention and mindfulness, the two main practice objectives of meditation. Jump-starting your practice. Although a full understanding of attention and awareness is essential, some of you might want to get right into the practice. So here's a quick and basic version of the meditation instructions. 1. Posture. A. When you sit in a chair or on a cushion on the floor, make yourself as comfortable as possible with your back straight. B. Get your back, neck, and head in alignment, front to back and side to side. C. I recommend closed eyes to start with, but you can keep them open if you prefer. 2. Relax. A. While maintaining a straight back, release any tension in the body. B. Relax your mind. Take some moments to appreciate the fact that you're gifting yourself with time away from all the usual tasks and worries of your life. 3. Intention and breath. A. Resolve to practice diligently for the entire meditation session, no matter how it goes. B. Breathe through your nose as naturally as possible without trying to control your breath. C. Bring your attention to the sensations associated with the breath in and around your nostrils or upper lip. Another option is to center your attention on the sensations associated with breathing in the abdomen. See which of these is the easiest for you to focus on, and then stick with that one, at least for the sit at hand. This is your meditation object. D. Allow your attention to stay centered on your meditation object while your peripheral awareness remains relaxed and open to anything that arises. For example, sounds in the environment, physical sensations in the body, thoughts in the background. E. Try to keep your attention centered on the meditation object. Inevitably, your mind will get distracted and drift away. As soon as you recognize this has happened, take a moment to appreciate the fact that you have remembered your intention to meditate and give your mind an imaginary pat on the back. The tendency is to judge yourself and feel disappointed for having lost your focus, but doing so is counterproductive. Mind wandering is natural, so it's not important that you lost your focus. Remembering and returning your focus to the meditation object is what's important. Therefore, positively reinforce such behavior by doing your best to reward the mind for remembering. F. Now, gently recenter your attention on the meditation object. G. Repeat step 3 until the meditation session is over. And remember, the only bad meditation session is the one you didn't do. The first objective of meditation: stable attention. Concentration, as a concept, is rather vague and in danger of being misinterpreted or of having meditation students bring their own preconceived ideas to it. I prefer to use the more accurate and useful term, stable attention. It's more descriptive of what we're actually trying to do in meditation. Stable attention is the ability to intentionally direct and sustain the focus of attention, as well as to control the scope of attention. Intentionally directing and sustaining attention simply means that we learn to choose which object we are going to attend to and keep our attention continuously fixed on it. Controlling the scope of attention means training the mind to adjust how wide or narrow our focus is and being more selective and intentional about what is included and excluded. Again, as an analogy, consider how vision works. To see something in all its detail, we must hold our gaze steady for as long as necessary, while focusing neither too narrowly nor too broadly. For many, everyday life is a combination of distraction and hectic multitasking. Having focused, sustained, and selective attention is a much more peaceful and engaging way of experiencing the world. It's also the most valuable tool we have for investigating our minds and coming to understand ourselves. Let's consider in more detail how stable attention is cultivated. Spontaneous movements of attention. To develop intentionally directed, stable attention, you must first have a clear understanding of its opposite, spontaneous movements of attention. Attention moves spontaneously in three different ways: scanning, getting captured, and alternating. Scanning is when our focus moves from object to object, searching the outer world or the contents of our mind for something of interest. Getting captured happens when an object, like a thought, bodily sensation, or some external stimulus, suddenly captures our attention. An ambulance siren can take our attention away from the book we're reading, or the pain of a stubbed toe can take our attention away from pleasant thoughts while we're out for a walk. You're probably familiar with this sort of spontaneous movement of attention as it happens all the time. The third type of spontaneous movement, alternating attention, is a subtler kind of scattered attention, only apparent to an experienced meditator. To be clear, everyone's attention alternates, whether they meditate or not. The difference is that the non-meditator doesn't experience his or her attention as alternating. Instead, there is the illusion of paying attention to two or more things simultaneously. What's actually happening is that the focus of attention is moving very quickly among several different objects, but staying with each one for about the same amount of time overall. It's the kind of attention we have when multitasking. If you're doodling in class while listening to a professor, your focus is moving so swiftly that there doesn't seem to be a break in your attention to each object. Attention to both seems simultaneous. Another way we might experience alternating attention is when our attention seems to stay focused on one object while certain things stand out from peripheral awareness. For instance, you might be answering an email, but you also hear the cat meowing to be fed and feel pressure in your bladder. Attention is still shifting rapidly among different objects, but it lingers longer on the main object, answering the email. Essentially, anything that stands out from the background of peripheral awareness does so because it is intermittently becoming an object of attention. In all these examples, we experience a continuity of attention, but attention is shifting rapidly among different objects. Unless you're purposely multitasking, alternating attention is a kind of spontaneous movement of attention. That means a certain amount of distraction is present. During meditation, intentional movements of attention will eventually replace all three types of spontaneous movements of attention. This process unfolds gradually and systematically through the stages. Let's look at what it means to intentionally direct and sustain attention, and how to control the scope of attention. Intentionally directing and sustaining attention. Intentionally directed attention means just that. We make a conscious decision about what to pay attention to. When we're at work, we have to purposely shift our focus from one thing to the next to finish a job. Also, when we get distracted and lose our focus, we have to intentionally bring ourselves back to the job. Beginning in the very first stages, 2 and 3, you exercise and strengthen your ability to intentionally direct attention. But that's only half the work. After directing your attention to the breath, you'll soon find that your mind has wandered off. For this reason, you also have to learn how to sustain attention. This means you want to stop all spontaneous movements of attention. Now, sustaining attention is trickier than directing attention. Why? It's possible to voluntarily direct attention. However, the part of the mind that sustains attention for more than a few moments works entirely unconsciously. We can't use our will to control how long we remain focused on one thing. Instead, an unconscious process weighs the importance of what we're focusing on against other possible objects of attention. If an object is important or interesting enough, attention remains stable. If something else is judged more important or interesting, then the balance tips and attention moves elsewhere. Even though this weighing process isn't under our conscious control, we can still influence it through consciously held intentions. Just by intending to observe an object and to come back whenever we get distracted, we're training that unconscious process to help us stay focused more continuously. It's a lot like learning to throw darts. The complex motor skills you need for dart throwing also involve training an unconscious process for using intention and repetition. By holding the intention to hit the target as you throw the darts, you train unconscious and involuntary hand-eye coordination until you can consistently hit the target. Any information held in consciousness is communicated to the unconscious. Formulating the conscious intention to focus on the meditation object provides a new piece of information for unconscious processes to take into account. Holding this intention, together with returning our attention to the breath over and over whenever we get distracted, informs the unconscious weighing process that keeping the focus on the breath is important. You start throwing mental darts at the target of sustained attention in stage 2. By stage 4, you have developed a consistent ability to keep your attention on the meditation object. Attention feels continuous and stable at stage 4, but the focus of attention still alternates rapidly between the meditation object and distractions, which we experience as objects that stand out from peripheral awareness. In order to truly master directed and sustained attention, we have to overcome this tendency for attention to alternate. Exclusive attention to one object, also called single-pointedness, is very different from alternating attention. Exclusive attention doesn't move back and forth between distractions and our intended focus. In stages 1 through 5, you greatly improve your overall stability of attention, but you only achieve exclusive attention in stage 6. We've just described how conscious intention influences the unconscious mechanisms that sustain attention, but that's only the beginning. Throughout the stages, you use conscious intention to train the unconscious mind in a variety of ways. The correct use of intention can also transform bad habits, undo incorrect views, and cultivate healthier perspectives. In short, skillfully applying conscious intention can completely restructure the mind and transform who we are. This is the very essence of meditation. We reprogram unconscious mental processes by repeating basic tasks over and over with a clear intention. We'll talk more about how this simple activity changes unconscious processes when we introduce the mind system model in the 5th interlude. Scope of attention. Once you can direct and sustain your attention, you will then work on controlling the scope of attention, how wide or narrow you want your focus to be. Many tasks in daily life require us to expand or contract our focus of attention. When threading a needle or straining to hear somebody talk in a noisy room, we really have to focus in and pay attention to detail. When watching football, our attention might start on the quarterback, but as soon as he gets the ball, the scope of our attention expands, taking in all the action on the field. Although we do have some control, without training, our scope tends to change automatically due to unconscious influences. An expanded scope is a lot like alternating attention, in that you can include more things in attention. It, too, can be a useful tool for multitasking. Yet when we're trying to have stable attention, a scope that keeps spontaneously expanding will let in all kinds of distractions. Attention won't really be stable until you can intentionally determine the scope of your focus and keep it steady. This is a skill you cultivate mainly in stage 6, after your focus of attention has become more stable. You learn to control the scope through a series of exercises where you deliberately shift between a narrow and a broad focus. In both stages 6 and 7, you give particular emphasis to exclusive focus on the meditation object. By stage 8, you have mastered control of your scope and can broaden your focus so it includes the entire field of conscious awareness in a single, open, and expansive non-focus. Ordinarily, having so broad a focus would just mean being dimly aware of many things at once. Fortunately, we can also increase the power of consciousness, meaning everything will still be quite clear. This brings us to the second objective of meditation, mindfulness. The second objective of meditation, Mindfulness. When the mindfulness of a samurai warrior fails, he loses his life. When we lack mindfulness in daily life, something similar happens. We become so entangled in our own thoughts and emotions that we forget the bigger picture. Our perspective narrows and we lose our way. We do and say regretful things that cause needless suffering to ourselves and others. Mindfulness allows us to recognize our options, choose our responses wisely, and take control over the direction of our lives. It also gives us the power to change our past conditioning and become the person we want to be. Most importantly, mindfulness leads to insight, wisdom, and awakening. But what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is a somewhat unfortunate translation of the Pali word sati because it suggests being attentive or remembering to pay attention. This doesn't really capture the full meaning and importance of sati. Even without sati, we're always paying attention to something. But with sati, we pay attention to the right things and in a more skillful way. This is because having sati actually means that you're more fully conscious and alert than normal. As a result, our peripheral awareness is much stronger, and our attention is used with unprecedented precision and objectivity. A more accurate but clumsy-sounding phrase would be powerfully effective conscious awareness or fully conscious awareness. I use the word mindfulness because people are familiar with it. However, by mindfulness, I specifically mean the optimal interaction between attention and peripheral awareness, which requires increasing the overall conscious power of the mind. Let's unpack this definition. Normal functions of attention and peripheral awareness. To really grasp mindfulness, we first have to know what attention and peripheral awareness normally do. Each has a different function, and they provide two distinct kinds of information, but they also work together. And to respond intelligently to our environment, we need both. With this understanding, you will see how ordinary attention and awareness can become that optimal interaction we call mindfulness. Attention has a very specific job. It picks out one object from the general field of conscious awareness, then analyzes and interprets that object. It's the faculty of attention that helps us discern between conflicting pieces of information. For example, is that a snake in the road or just a piece of rope? Once an object of attention has been identified and analyzed, it can be further examined, reflected on, judged, and responded to. In order for this process to happen quickly and effectively, attention turns all of its objects into concepts or abstract ideas, unless, of course, the object is already a concept or idea. Generally, attention translates our raw experience of the world into terms we can more easily understand, which we then organize into a picture of reality. Peripheral awareness, on the other hand, works very differently. Instead of singling out one object for analysis, it involves a general awareness of everything our senses take in. Peripheral awareness is only minimally conceptual. It is open and inclusive, as well as holistic. That is, it's concerned with the relationships of objects to each other and to the whole. Peripheral awareness allows us to respond more effectively by giving us information about the background and context of our experience, where we are, what's happening around us, what we're doing, and why. For example, not mistaking the rope for a snake, since we're in Alaska and it's winter. Attention analyzes our experience, and peripheral awareness provides the context. When one or the other doesn't do its job, or when there isn't enough interaction between the two, then we respond to situations less effectively. We may overreact, make poor decisions, or misinterpret what's going on. Any new sensation, thought, or feeling appears first in peripheral awareness. It is here that the mind decides whether or not something is important enough to become an object of attention. Peripheral awareness filters out unimportant information and captures the objects that deserve closer scrutiny by attention. This is why specific objects can seem to pop out of peripheral awareness to become the objects of attention. Attention will also browse the objects in peripheral awareness, searching for something relevant or important, or just more entertaining to examine. This is the scanning process we described earlier. But what we do with attention trains peripheral awareness to select certain things as well. If you're interested in birds, for example, peripheral awareness learns to keep watch for flying feathered objects. As attention hones in on something, peripheral awareness is alert and on the lookout for anything new or unusual. When awareness takes in something that might be of interest, it frees attention from its current object and redirects it toward the new object. Say you're engrossed in a conversation while walking, when out of the corner of your eye, you notice a shape moving toward you. Peripheral awareness alerts attention, which quickly processes the information. We're in the bike lane, and a biker is heading straight for us. So you grab your friend and step out of the way. Peripheral awareness helps us stay alert to our surroundings and to use attention as effectively as possible. When peripheral awareness doesn't do its job, attention moves blindly, without guidance, and can be taken off guard. Fortunately, not every experience needs to be analyzed. Otherwise, attention would be quite overwhelmed. Peripheral awareness takes care of many things without invoking attention, such as brushing a fly away from your face while you're eating lunch. Attention can certainly be involved with brushing the fly away, as well as with other small things, like choosing what to eat next on your plate. But there are simply too many basic tasks that don't require attention. Using it for all of them would be impossible. There are also situations that happen too fast for attention to deal with. For instance, attention can't provide the quick, reflexive response of a mother who stops her child from running into a busy street. Because peripheral awareness doesn't process information as thoroughly as attention, it responds much more quickly. If peripheral awareness doesn't do its job, attention is too easily overwhelmed and too slow to take over these functions. As a result, we don't react to these events at all, or we react to them in a completely unconscious and automatic way, blindly, mindlessly, and with none of the benefits of conscious processing. Another way attention and awareness work together is by helping us see things more objectively. On its own, attention usually involves a strong concern for self. This makes sense, considering that part of attention's job is to evaluate the importance of things in terms of our personal well-being. But it also means that objects of attention can be easily distorted by desire, fear, aversion, and other emotions. Attention not only interprets objects based on self-interest, it leads us to identify with external objects. This is my car, or mental states. I am angry, happy, etc. Peripheral awareness is less personal and takes things in more objectively, as they are. External objects, feeling states, and mental activities, rather than being identified with, appear in peripheral awareness as part of a bigger picture. We may be peripherally aware, for example, that some annoyance is arising. This is very different from having the thought, I am annoyed. Strong peripheral awareness helps tone down the self-centered tendencies of attention, making perception more objective. But when peripheral awareness fades, the way we perceive things becomes self-centered and distorted. Finally, attention and peripheral awareness can be either extrospective or introspective. Extrospective means that attention or awareness is directed toward objects that come from outside your mind, such as sights, smells, or bodily sensations. Introspective means the objects in consciousness are internal. Thoughts, feelings, states, and activities of mind. Even though attention and awareness can be either extrospective or introspective, only peripheral awareness can observe the overall state of mind. For example, whether it is happy, peaceful, or agitated, as well as the activities of the mind. For example, whether attention is moving or not, and whether attention is occupied with thinking, remembering, or listening. The condition in which the mind stands back to observe its own state and activities is called metacognitive introspective awareness. Attention, on the other hand, can't observe activities of the mind because its movements and abstracting of information from awareness are activities of the mind. In other words, we can't attend to attention. When attention is focused on remembering, for example, you can't also use attention to know that you're remembering, but you can be aware that you're remembering. Also, because attention works by isolating objects, it cannot observe overall states of the mind. If you do turn your attention introspectively, it takes a snapshot from peripheral awareness of your mental state right before you looked. Say someone asks, "How do you feel?" When you look inside, attention tries to transform awareness of your overall mental state into a specific conceptual thought, like, "I am happy." Now that we've seen how different yet interdependent attention and peripheral awareness are, the importance of having both is obvious. We are responding to something in almost every waking moment, whether it comes from the environment or from within our own mind. Those responses include not just our words and actions, but the thoughts and emotions we experience as well. Although it may not seem like it, there is always more than one way we can respond, which means there's a continuous process of decision-making going on as well. The quality of these moment-to-moment decisions depends on the quality of the information made available by both attention and awareness. Everything we think, feel, say, or do from one moment to the next, who we are and how we behave, all ultimately depends on the interactions between attention and awareness. Mindfulness is the optimum interaction between the two, so cultivating mindfulness can change everything we think, feel, say, and do for the better. It can completely transform who we are. Comparison of peripheral awareness and attention. Peripheral awareness: holistic, relational, contextual. Attention: isolates and analyzes. Peripheral awareness filters all incoming information. Attention selects information from awareness. Peripheral awareness acts as a watchful alert system. Attention hones in on objects. Peripheral awareness: less processing, quicker response. Attention: more processing, slower response. Peripheral awareness: less personal and more objective. Attention: more self-centered. Peripheral awareness can be introspective and extrospective. Attention can be introspective or extrospective. Cultivating mindfulness. Why aren't we naturally more mindful? Why does mindfulness have to be cultivated? There are two main reasons. First, most of us have never really learned to use peripheral awareness effectively. Second, we don't have enough conscious power to sustain mindfulness, especially at the times when we need it most. The first of these two problems I describe as awareness deficit disorder. This means a chronic lack of awareness due to overusing attention. Most people overuse attention because it's under direct conscious control, and peripheral awareness isn't. Awareness arises automatically in response to external or internal stimuli, so it's easy to neglect. Consistently neglecting peripheral awareness in favor of attention eventually stunts the faculty of awareness. In meditation, where other distractions are minimized, we can learn to use peripheral awareness effectively and become skilled at using attention and awareness together. However, skill at using attention and awareness is only one part of mindfulness training. Developing raw mental power is the other part that often gets overlooked. Without this increase in power, you won't get very far in cultivating mindfulness, and you will still find yourself losing mindfulness when you need it most, especially off the cushion. For example, if your partner had a bad day at work and complains about the food you made, it takes mindfulness to maintain an objective awareness that recognizes the real cause of the complaint. But when strong emotions take hold, All your energy pours into hyper-focused attention as you go into fight or flight mode. Your awareness fails, and attention hones in on the criticism as a personal attack. Sustained mindfulness requires a consciousness that's more powerful than normal. Think of consciousness as a limited power source. Both attention and awareness draw their energy from this shared source. With only a limited amount of energy available for both, there will always be a trade-off between the two. When attention focuses intensely on an object, the field of conscious awareness begins to contract, and peripheral awareness of the background fades. Intensify that focus enough, and the context and guidance provided by peripheral awareness disappears completely. In this state, awareness can no longer ensure that attention is directed to where it's most necessary and beneficial. This is like wearing blinders or having tunnel vision. We simply don't have enough conscious power to continue to be aware of our surroundings while focusing so intently on the object. This is always a problem in situations where attention drains our conscious capacity, such as during an argument, dealing with an urgent problem, or when falling in love. There are other ways we can lose mindfulness, but they all come down to not having enough conscious power to sustain an optimal interaction between attention and awareness. It takes considerable conscious power to attend to many different objects, so we lose awareness. Thus, we lose mindfulness whenever our attention shifts rapidly back and forth between different objects, such as when multitasking. Emotional stress causes the same thing to happen. We have so many worries and concerns competing for attention that we lose perspective. And of course, dullness also robs us of the conscious power necessary for mindfulness. On the other hand, when we're in a relaxed state, awareness tends to open, and the intensity of attention dissipates. Relax even more, and attention increasingly fades. More often than not, dullness sets in. Because attention and awareness draw from the same limited capacity for consciousness, when one grows brighter, the other becomes dimmer, resulting in suboptimal performance and loss of mindfulness. Proper training in mindfulness changes this equation, providing more conscious power for optimal interaction and no more trade-offs. The goal, therefore, is to increase the total power of consciousness available for both attention and awareness. The result is peripheral awareness that is clearer and attention that gets used more appropriately, purposefully, in the present moment, and without becoming bogged down in judgment and projection. Increasing the power of mindfulness. Increasing the power of consciousness isn't a mysterious process. It's a lot like weight training. You simply do exercises where you practice sustaining close attention and strong peripheral awareness at the same time. This is the only way to make consciousness more powerful. The more vivid you can make your attention while sustaining awareness, the more power you will gain. You will learn a number of different exercises as you move through the stages. In the higher stages of meditation, attention and awareness actually merge together to become one fully integrated system. More about that in the chapter on Stage 8. Like strengthening a muscle, developing powerful mindfulness involves enhancing a natural capacity we all have. Just reflect for a moment on how your alertness and clarity of mind change throughout the day. Sometimes we feel quite sharp, energetic, and lucid. A life-threatening situation is an exceptional example of this. Time slows down. We become finely attuned to every little detail. Every color, shape, sound, and sensation is vivid. Sometimes we have the feeling of being an outside observer, just watching the events unfold. Athletes refer to this kind of hyper-conscious state as being in the zone. This is one extreme. On the other end of the spectrum, there are times during the day when we feel sluggish. A lack of mental energy leads to dullness and then to drowsiness. In these kinds of states, we miss much of what's happening around us and often misinterpret what we are able to perceive. Severe fatigue or alcohol can cause extreme dullness. Deep sleep is the ultimate state of dullness. These varying experiences show the range of the conscious capabilities of our mind. Compare your normal level of consciousness with that of an athlete in the zone, or with a person in an emergency. You'll realize that daily life consists mostly of different degrees of dullness and mindlessness. As you progress through each stage in this practice, you move steadily away from dullness toward enhanced states of consciousness that support increased mindfulness. Having more conscious power means the quality of both attention and peripheral awareness improves. This transforms the interaction between them in a number of important ways. Peripheral awareness doesn't fade when attention is very focused. Peripheral awareness does a better job of providing context and makes you more sensitive to how objects relate to each other and to the whole. Peripheral awareness processes information more thoroughly, making it better at selecting appropriate objects for attention to focus on. Attention is always directed toward the most important objects. Attention becomes clearer, more intense, and can analyze things more effectively. Because peripheral awareness is more powerful, attention doesn't get stuck in subjectivity and projection. Perception is more objective and has more of the seeing things as they are quality of awareness. How mindfulness progresses through the 10 stages. Throughout the stages of meditation, you systematically train your attention and peripheral awareness in order to develop mindfulness. This is a matter of both skill development and increasing the total power of consciousness. As you progress, I will introduce new techniques and guidance in each stage to help you more fully develop both skill in mindfulness and power of consciousness. This training starts in stage 3. You practice focusing more and more closely on the meditation object while sustaining extrospective awareness. In stages 4 through 6, as the clarity and stability of attention improve dramatically, the emphasis will be on developing strong introspective awareness. At stage 5, you specifically aim to increase the power of consciousness by trying to detect very subtle sensations without losing awareness. In stage 6, you further increase conscious power by dramatically expanding the scope of your intention to include the entire body, while still trying to detect very subtle sensations. By the end of stage 6, your attention is extremely stable, and you have perfected metacognitive introspective awareness, the ability to continuously observe the state and activity of the mind. In stage 7, you practice narrowing the scope way down, honing in on the constantly changing details of sensations, bringing the power of consciousness to its fullest development by stage 8. The benefits of mindfulness. When you have cultivated mindfulness, life becomes richer, more vivid, more satisfying, and you don't take everything that happens so personally. Attention plays a more appropriate role within the greater context of a broad and powerful awareness. You're fully present, happier, and at ease, because you're not so easily caught up in the stories and melodramas the mind likes to concoct. Your powers of attention are used more appropriately and effectively to examine the world. You become more objective and clear-headed, and develop an enhanced awareness of the whole. When all these factors are ripe, you're ready for profound insight into the true nature of reality. These are the extraordinary benefits of mindfulness. Summary. The two main objectives of meditation practice are developing stable attention, cultivating powerful mindfulness that optimizes the interaction between attention and awareness. A famous analogy in Zen compares the mind to a pool of water. This is a helpful way to think about the training and goals of meditation. If the water is agitated, churned up by wind and currents, it doesn't provide a clear reflection, nor can we see to the bottom. But as the water calms, the debris that made the pool muddy begins to settle, and the water itself becomes clear. A calm pool also reflects the sky and clouds perfectly. In the same way, if the mind is agitated, disturbed by the concerns of daily life, it doesn't accurately reflect experience. Instead, we are caught up in projections and lack perspective. The inner workings of the mind remain murky as well, full of mental debris that clutter our thinking. Developing stable attention is the key to making the water calm, settled, and pure. Mindfulness is like the sunlight that illuminates the surface as well as the depths. Don't forget, however, that the path is as important as the goal. The stages outlined in this book may bring you to a state of peace and insight, but they are also an exciting journey of discovery into the nature of the mind. Relish in this beautiful and sometimes challenging journey. The goal isn't just getting to a calm, quiet pool, but learning about the makeup of the water itself as it goes from choppy to still, from cloudy to crystal clear. Stage 1. Establishing a practice. 1. The goal for Stage 1 is to develop a regular meditation practice. Put all your effort into forming and holding a conscious intention to sit down and meditate for a set period every day, and to practice diligently for the duration of the sit. When your intentions are clear and strong, the appropriate actions naturally follow, and you'll find yourself regularly sitting down to meditate. If this doesn't happen, rather than chastising yourself and trying to force yourself to practice, work on strengthening your motivation and intentions instead. Practice goals for Stage 1. There are 2 goals for Stage 1. First, you will learn how to prepare for practice and to use a simple method to enter meditation gradually. Second, and more important, is to establish a consistent daily practice where you meditate to the best of your ability throughout every session. To succeed, you'll need to recognize the obstacles that stand in your way and create solutions. Mastering this stage provides you with the strong foundation you need to progress rapidly through the 10 stages. How to begin your practice. The basic practice used in this book is quite simple. Direct your attention toward a well-defined meditation object. Whenever your attention slips, redirect it back to that object. Repeat this as often as needed. Rather than jump right in, though, you'll start with 2 preliminary practices to help prepare your body and mind for a smooth transition to the meditation object. 6-point preparation for meditation. I recommend the following 6-point preparation to new students. You should prepare for meditation just as you would for other activities, by thinking and planning beforehand. Memorize these 6 points and go through them as soon as you sit down. You can even review them in your head while on the way to your meditation spot. They are motivation, goals, expectations, diligence, distractions, and posture. 1. Fire up your motivation. After you sit down, the first thing to do is to remind yourself why you've chosen to meditate. Perhaps it's to have a little more peace of mind and improve your mental skills. Or it could be to achieve awakening. Or maybe it's just because you know you'll feel better for the rest of the day if you meditate than if you don't. Don't judge your reasons as being good or bad. Just acknowledge and accept them as they are. Having a clear sense of purpose will fire up your motivation and help you deal with any feelings of restlessness or resistance. 2. Set reasonable goals. Goals give direction, and it's important they be realistic so you're not disappointed. Ask yourself what you hope to accomplish in this particular session. Think about the problems you've been working on in recent sits, and decide how you can best apply yourself to the practice today. Then choose a goal for this sit that's reasonable given your recent progress. At first, your goals can be simple, such as not giving up and daydreaming, or remaining patient when your mind wanders or you get drowsy. Understanding the stages and which one you're at is a powerful tool for setting realistic goals, so periodically revisit the overview. 3. Beware of expectations. You should set goals and practice diligently to achieve them, but be careful of ambitious expectations about where you should be. You can easily set yourself up for disappointment. Resolve to hold the goals you've set very lightly, to find enjoyment in every meditation, no matter what happens, and to savor any achievement. Simply sitting down to practice is an accomplishment. There will be sessions where it's easy to focus. This is the fruit of your previous practice, but don't expect to notice obvious progress each time you sit. There will be plateaus where nothing seems to change for days or weeks. Today, you may have less stability of attention or mindfulness than you did weeks or even months ago. That's normal, so stay relaxed. Make your effort diligent yet joyful. Don't get caught up in expectations. And always remember, there is no such thing as a bad meditation. 4. Commit to diligence. Diligence means engaging wholeheartedly in the practice rather than spending your time on the cushion, planning, or daydreaming. You will be tempted to think about things that are more interesting or important than the meditation object. Problems to be solved, projects to plan, and fantasies to entertain. So commit not to indulge in these tempting distractions. Also, judging the quality of your practice can lead to doubt, giving rise to procrastination and resistance. Remind yourself that whenever resistance arises, the best way to overcome it is by simply continuing to practice. Resolve to practice diligently for the entire session, regardless of how your meditation goes. 5. Review potential distractions. It's important to know your state of mind before you begin to meditate. Perform a quick inventory of the things in your life that could come up as distractions, such as a problem at work or an argument with a friend. Check to see if your mind is occupied by any worries about the future, regrets about the past, doubts, or other annoyances. It will help to review the 5 hindrances described in the second interlude. Acknowledge these thoughts and emotions, whatever they are, and resolve to set them aside if they arise. You may not be wholly successful, but just setting the intention will make them easier to handle. 6. Adjust your posture. Before you begin, review your posture and get comfortable. Here's a checklist. Adjust any supports you use to help you sit comfortably. Your head, neck, and back should be aligned, leaning neither forward nor backward nor to the side. Your shoulders should be even, and your hands level with each other so your muscles are balanced. Your lips should be closed, your teeth slightly apart, and your tongue against the roof of your mouth, with the tip against the back of your upper teeth. Start with your eyes closed and angled slightly downward, as though you were reading a book. This creates the least tension in your forehead and face. If you prefer, leave your eyes slightly open, with your gaze directed at the floor in front of you. Your eyes will move during meditation, but when you notice they've shifted, return them to where they were. With your lips closed, breathe through your nose in a natural way. It shouldn't feel controlled or forced. Relax and enjoy yourself. Scan your body for any tension and let it go. All the activity of meditation is in the mind, so the body should be like a lump of soft clay, solid and stable, but completely pliant. This helps keep physical distractions to a minimum. For more on how to sit, refer to the right posture later in this chapter. Sometimes new students say, I seem to spend a lot of time just doing the preparation for practice. Is that a problem? When I ask how the rest of their meditation went afterward, that usually answers the question. By the time you go through the 6 points, your mind will be well settled. The preparation also helps establish a consistent practice, free from resistance and the deliberate wasting of time. And it doesn't matter how long you spend on the preparation, because it, too, is a form of meditation. in which you still intentionally direct and sustain attention. If your mind wanders, bring it back using the same techniques we describe in the next section on breath meditation. After doing the preparation every day for a while, it will go much more quickly. Preparation for meditation. Motivation. Review your purpose for meditation. Be honest. Don't judge your reasons. Be aware and accept them. Example: I want more peace of mind. Goals. Decide what you hope to work out in this session. Set a reasonable goal for where you are in the stages. Keep it simple. Keep it small. Example: not to get annoyed when my mind wanders. Expectations. Bring to mind the dangers of expectations and be gentle with yourself. Find enjoyment in every meditation, no matter what happens. There is no such thing as a bad meditation. Diligence. Resolve to practice diligently for the entire session. Recall that the best way to overcome resistance is by simply continuing to practice without judging yourself. Distractions. Perform a quick inventory of things in your life that might come up to distract you. Acknowledge these thoughts and emotions and resolve to set them aside if they do arise. You may not be wholly successful, but at least you have planted a seed, the intention not to let them dominate your mind. Posture. Review your posture and get comfortable. Attend to your supports, your head, neck, back, shoulders, lips, eyes, and breath. Relax and enjoy yourself. All the activity of meditation is in the mind, so the proper state for the body is like a lump of soft clay, solid and stable, but completely pliant. This will keep physical distractions to a minimum. The meditation object. A meditation object is something you intentionally choose to be the focus of your attention during meditation. Although you can choose just about anything, the breath is ideal for cultivating attention and mindfulness. First, the breath is always with you. Second, it allows you to be a completely passive observer. You don't need to do anything, such as repeat a mantra, generate a visualization, or rely on any special item like a candle, icon, or kasina. You can meditate on the breath at any opportunity, wherever you are, every day, even up to your dying breath. The breath also changes over time, becoming fainter as concentration deepens. This makes it suitable for developing powerful attention, since the details you focus on become ever more subtle as sensations grow less distinct. Likewise, the fact that sensations change continuously, moment by moment, is conducive to insight into the nature of impermanence. Yet the breath also constantly repeats itself over and over in the same pattern, making it suitable as a fixed, that is, relatively unchanging meditation object for entering states of meditative absorption. Because of these different qualities, the breath is used as the basis for the practice of tranquility and insight. Shamatha Vipassana, dry insight practices, Sukha Vipassana, and meditative absorptions, jhana. Whenever we refer to the breath as the meditation object, we actually mean the sensations produced by breathing, not some visualization or idea of the breath going in and out. When I direct you to observe the breath in the chest or abdomen, I mean the sensations of movement, pressure, and touch occurring there as you breathe in and out. When I say the breath at the nose, I mean the sensations of temperature, pressure, and air moving on the skin anywhere around the tip of the nose, the rim, inside the nostrils, or on the upper lip just below the nostrils. Throughout the 10 stages, your meditation object will most often be the breath sensations at the nose, but not always. Some suggest using the sensations of rising and falling at the abdomen instead. Beginners often find the large movements of the abdomen easier to follow at first. But when the breath becomes very shallow, the coarser sensitivity of the abdomen can make it harder to detect the breath sensations. I recommend the nose because the nerve endings there are much more sensitive. Choose whatever area around the nostrils works best for you. Even though the breath has many benefits, the methods presented in the 10 stages can also be used with a visualized object, a mantra, or in loving kindness practices. All the same principles can be employed in conjunction with the noting technique of the Mahasi-style Vipassana method, the breath concentration and body scanning techniques of the Upa Kin Goenka Vipassana method, or the uniquely systematic Vipassana of Shinzen Young. In each of these, you face the same problems of mind wandering, distraction, and dullness, which the techniques here are designed to address. That said, not every meditation object leads to the final stages as surely as do the sensations of the breath. A gradual 4-step transition to the meditation object. In this practice, you transition gently from the free-ranging attention of daily life to focusing on the breath at the nose. The transition is spread over 4 steps. In each, you define a specific domain or space in which you can allow your attention to range freely. Any object in the space can serve as the focus of your attention at any moment, meaning your focus just moves as it will. As you proceed from step to step, you further restrict the space in which attention is free to move, until you're finally focused on the sensations of the breath at the nose. But as you make this transition with attention, remember to always maintain peripheral awareness. Every step in the transition provides a good opportunity to learn to distinguish between attention and awareness. Treat this as a serious practice, not just as a nice way to start a meditation. Use it each time you sit down to meditate, especially if you're a beginner. As you move through these 4 steps, always remember to relax your body, calm your mind, and deliberately evoke feelings of contentment. It's like gradually settling into a spa. Continually notice any pleasant sensations, contributing to a sense of relaxation, well-being, and overall happiness. As you will learn, relaxation and happiness play an important role in the process of training the mind. Step 1. Focus on the present. First, close your eyes and spend a few moments becoming fully present. Take in everything presented to the senses. With your eyes closed, you'll find the 2 main sensory stimuli are sounds and sensations originating on or in the body. Open your peripheral awareness fully. Next, allow your attention to tune into and range freely among any of the sounds, bodily sensations, smells, or thoughts you may experience. Within this holistic panorama, the one limitation you place on movements of attention is to remain in the present, here and now. Staying present is extremely important. While noises and bodily sensations all occur in the here and now, thoughts about them, beyond just noticing and recognizing them, take you away from the present. So let your attention go to any sensations that attract it, but don't analyze or think about them. Observe bodily sensations objectively, not identifying with them as mine. Let your attention move as it will, drawn by the moment-to-moment arising and passing away of sensory objects within your field of conscious awareness. If you find a particular sensation to be pleasant, take a moment to enjoy it. Let that pleasure condition your mind toward a state of happiness in the present. Try to distinguish clearly between the subjective quality of pleasure and the sense object that triggered it, savoring the pleasure, not the sense object. If your mind reacts to something unpleasant, distinguish between that reaction and the object that produced it. Then let go of the reaction. You'll also be aware of all kinds of other mental activities, memories, thoughts about the future, or things happening elsewhere, and so on. Expect this kind of activity to go on in your mind. Being fully present means being aware of it, but not engaging in its content. Disregard any thought that has nothing to do with the present moment. Even thoughts about the present should be approached cautiously, because they can quickly drag you away from the here and now. On the other hand, some thoughts, such as how to make your posture more comfortable, can help you settle into the present. In general, mindfully observing thoughts is tricky, so it's better to focus on sounds, smells, and physical sensations to avoid being hooked by thoughts. A helpful phrase to remember when dealing with distractions of any kind is, let it come, let it be, let it go. Don't try to suppress it, just let it come into peripheral awareness. Don't engage the distraction or focus attention on it. Simply disregard it and let it be in the background. Then let it go away by itself. This is a passive process. There is nothing to do but allow these objects to arise and pass away on their own, moment by moment. When you find your attention has been captured by a thought, just come back to the present. Step 2. Focus on bodily sensations. Once you've become fully present with every kind of sensory stimulus, limit your attention to bodily sensations. These include all physical sensations arising on or in the body, such as touch, pressure, warmth, coolness, movement, tingling, deep visceral sensations like a rumbling in your stomach, and so forth. With your attention limited to bodily sensations, let everything else slip into the background of peripheral awareness. Nothing should be suppressed or excluded from your field of conscious awareness. Just let sounds, smells, and thoughts keep circulating in the background, but don't focus on them. Let them come, let them be, and let them go in peripheral awareness while you restrict all movements of attention to bodily sensations. Whenever you notice your attention going to a sound or thought, bring it back to the body. As you pay more attention to your body, release any tension you find and make final adjustments to your posture. Again, notice any pleasant sensations, distinguishing between the sensation as sensation and your mind's reaction to it, and spend a few moments enjoying the pleasure. These pleasant sensations might include feelings of air moving over the skin, warmth or coolness, and the softness or supportive firmness of the meditation cushion. You may experience pleasant sensations deeper in your muscles and joints as you relax, or warm feelings in your chest and abdomen. There may simply be an overall pleasant sense of stillness and peace. Whatever the sensations, enjoy and explore them freely. For a beginner, it can be hard to relax at first because your mind is agitated and your body is unaccustomed to staying still for long. When you start feeling restless or your sense of contentment fades, then thoughts, memories, and emotions will begin to stir. Don't get annoyed or try to suppress them. Instead, return to step 1, broadening your awareness until you become fully present with everything happening in the moment again. In particular, seek out the pleasurable aspects of the present and try to reestablish and reinforce feelings of contentment and happiness. Repeat this process of backing off and starting over as often as needed until the mind can rest easily with your attention focused only on bodily sensations. There is no need to hurry on to the next step. If you never get past step 2 during your entire meditation session, that's perfectly fine. However, sometimes focusing in more can also help you settle down, so don't hesitate to try moving to the next step. You can always return to this one if narrowing your focus doesn't work. Step 3. Focus on bodily sensations related to the breath. As you sit quietly observing the body, your attention will naturally gravitate toward the sensations of movement produced by breathing, since little else changes while sitting quietly. As you tune in, start paying attention to all the different kinds of breath-related sensations. You will notice them especially around your nose, face, chest, and abdomen. You may find sensations of movement caused by the breath in your upper arms and shoulders or elsewhere. Take your time to become familiar with all these breath-related sensations. In particular, savor any pleasant qualities associated with them. You may notice the mind becomes mildly invigorated during the in-breath, while the out-breath feels more relaxing and soothing. Without suppressing anything else in your field of conscious awareness, restrict your attention to these breath-related sensations. Once you settle in, start focusing more directly on the sensations of the breath in specific areas. Closely observe the rise and fall of the abdomen, then the expansion and contraction of the chest, then the sensations produced by air moving in and out of the nostrils. Allow your mind to move freely among the abdomen, chest, nose, and anywhere else where you feel breath-related sensations. It's important to breathe naturally. Be a passive observer, noticing any sensations that happen to be present. You don't have to exaggerate the breath to make sensations easier to notice. If you want to perceive them more clearly, try imagining that you're looking at the place where the sensations are occurring. Let your eyes rest in a position that serves your imagination, but don't actually try to direct your eyes to the tip of your nose or your abdomen. That will just create discomfort. Your eyes will naturally tend to rest as though they were looking at a point a few inches in front of your face. Nor should you visualize the area in your mind. Take note of, savor, and even purposely induce feelings of peace and happiness, especially as your attention becomes more stable and you experience more inner calm. Step 4. Focus on sensations of the breath at the nose. Now direct your attention to the sensations produced by the air moving in and out of your nostrils. Locate where those sensations are clearest, just inside the nostrils, at the tip of the nose, on the upper lip, or wherever else. The area may be as small as a pencil eraser or up to 2 inches across. Also, the location of sensations may not be quite the same for the in and out breaths. Keep your attention on the area where the breath sensations are clearest. Don't try to follow the air as it moves into the body or out of your nose. Just observe the sensations from the air passing over the spot where you're focusing your attention. Remember, the meditation object is the sensations of the breath, not the breath itself. Without intentionally suppressing anything from awareness, keep watching the sensations of the in and out breath. If your attention wanders, gently bring it back. And that's it. From this point on, the sensations of the breath at the tip of the nose will be your primary meditation object. Cultivating stable attention will continue all the way through stage 6. Developing exclusive attention is the final event in the process and won't happen before stage 6, so don't even concern yourself with it in the early stages. For now, your aim is just to tame the constant movements of attention, while at the same time trying to maintain peripheral awareness of things in the background. In other words, you want to develop stable attention with mindfulness. Counting as a method to stabilize attention. Counting your breaths at the start of a sit really helps stabilize your attention. If you're a novice, you should use this method all the time. Once you have moved through the 4 steps and attention is restricted to the breath at the nose, start silently counting each breath. Your goal will be to follow the sensations continuously for 10 consecutive breaths. When your attention slips or you lose track of the count, which will happen frequently at first, just start over again at 1. For now, consider your attention continuous if you've missed neither an inhale nor an exhale, nor lost count of your breaths. However, don't expect perfection. For a beginner, you're doing well if you're aware of most of the in and out breath. You can set higher standards for yourself as you become more skilled. But in the beginning, high standards are unreasonable and will only discourage you. Also, you won't be able to focus exclusively, single-pointedly, on the breath. In fact, trying to do so will only cause your mind to wander more. So expect to be aware of many other things as you're watching the breath. Finally, you're not trying for nonverbal or non-conceptual observation at this point. You can talk to yourself and think about the breath as much as you like while observing it, as long as you don't completely lose awareness of the actual sensations. or lose track of the count. Interestingly, what you consider the start and end of a breath cycle matters. We automatically tend to regard the beginning as the inhale and the pause after the exhale as the end. However, if you're thinking about the breath in that way, then that pause becomes the perfect opportunity for your thoughts to wander off, since the mind naturally tends to shift focus when it has completed a task. Instead, try this. Consider the beginning of the out-breath as the start of the cycle. That way, the pause occurs in the middle of your cycle and is less likely to trip you up. This may seem like a small detail, but it often makes a difference. Another approach is to silently say the number during the pause at the end of the out-breath. This fills the gap and helps keep the mind on task. If you have started over many times without successfully reaching 10, change the goal to 5. Before long, 10 breaths will be easy. Once you've succeeded in counting to 5 or 10, keep observing the breath sensations, but stop counting. Counting quickly becomes automatic, and you can still forget the breath and have your mind wander while continuing to count. Therefore, counting beyond 10 breaths has little value. The rule is never more than 10, never less than 5. However, if your mind is particularly agitated or wanders again soon after you bring it back, do another 10 count when you return to the breath. Also, if your mind wanders for a long time, several minutes or more, once you become aware of it, don't immediately return to the breath at the nose. Rather, go back to step 2 and briefly focus on bodily sensations. Then to step 3 and focus on breath sensations in general, and then start counting breaths at the nose. Even if you use a meditation object other than the breath, counting is still a wonderful way to transition from daily activities into a more focused meditative state. Just as with Pavlos conditioned over time, took counting as a sign to start meditating, and it will automatically calm down. Regardless of whether you're a beginner or an advanced meditator, I strongly recommend using counting as part of your regular practice. Counting will give you valuable information on the state of your mind and the distractions you're most likely to face. When you master stage 10, you will have effortless concentration before reaching the 10th breath. Summary of the basic practice. Sit down, close your eyes, and go through the 6-point preparation for meditation: motivation, goals, expectations, diligence, distractions, and posture. Then do the 4-step transition, gradually restricting the natural movements of your attention as you move from one step to the next. The transition needs to be gentle and gradual. Emphasize relaxation, peacefulness, and pleasure, rather than willpower and effort. When you reach step 4 and you're focusing on the breath at the nose, stabilize your attention by counting 5 or 10 breaths without interruption. When you're finished counting, keep attending to the sensations of the breath at the nose. The time it takes to work through this entire sequence varies from person to person and from one session to the next. For a novice, just moving through the 4-step transition may take most or all of the session. As you improve, you will proceed more quickly. Eventually, you will move through the 6 points and from the free-ranging attention of daily life to a stable focus on the meditation object in a matter of minutes or seconds. Establishing a practice. Now that you understand how to begin your practice, we'll focus on the primary goal of stage 1, establishing a regular daily practice. This may seem obvious, perhaps trivial, but few meditators, even those professing years of experience, maintain a truly consistent practice regimen. Yet to truly reap the many benefits of meditation, you must master this first stage by overcoming the obstacles and taking the necessary steps. Obstacles to establishing a practice. There are 4 major obstacles to overcome at this stage: not having enough time to meditate, procrastinating instead of sitting down to practice, reluctance and resistance to actually doing the practice, and doubt about your abilities. Time. Finding time to practice is your initial big challenge. When you first decide to take up meditation, you're naturally eager. Maybe you found inspiration from a book or lecture. Perhaps you attended a meditation class or have a friend who meditates. At first, sheer enthusiasm helps you find time to practice. Yet, as your early excitement fades, you soon begin to feel the pressure of other demands. We will discuss some practical solutions for overcoming this obstacle, but the most effective antidote is actually quite simple. As you would do with anything else you're committed to, you must make the time to meditate. I don't know anyone who has established a meditation practice in his or her spare time. And besides, for most of us, spare time is rare. If you don't set a regular schedule, you most likely won't meditate. Make your practice a priority. Procrastination. Procrastination is one of the classic problems in meditation. Modern life tends to be busy, full of deadlines, and stressful. And maybe you started meditating to manage your stress better, only to find that practicing is just another demand on your overextended time and energy. When this happens, it's easy to say, I'll meditate after I take care of such and such, or I'll have more time to meditate tomorrow. This is why you must make practice a priority. Otherwise, you will always find something more important to do first. Also, once you've been meditating regularly for a while, the after effects will make you more at ease and relaxed. Ironically, you will feel like you have more time, not less. Reluctance and resistance. The reason many turn to meditation is the promise of greater mindfulness and inner peace. However, when you sit down and discover how wild and uncontrollable your mind can be, you may easily get frustrated and conclude that meditation is all work and little reward. This is where reluctance and resistance to practice usually appear. Whereas procrastination keeps us from sitting down, reluctance and resistance lead us to spend our time on the cushion daydreaming, fantasizing, or making plans rather than actually meditating. In other words, you'll do almost anything to avoid what you now think is a boring, difficult, and unsatisfying task. The keys to overcoming reluctance and resistance are inspiration and motivation. When you first start practicing, you'll need to get your inspiration from somewhere else. However, once you start making progress, your own success provides motivation. Self-doubt. We tend to stick with activities we are naturally good at and avoid the ones we struggle with. When you discover you can't control your unruly mind, you may begin doubting your abilities. Maybe I'm different in some way, or just lack self-discipline. Or you might believe you aren't smart or spiritual enough for meditation. It's easy to think some inherent obstacle is holding you back, especially if you start comparing your experiences with what other people seem to be achieving. Yet the real obstacle is self-doubt, which is powerful and can rob you of your enthusiasm and determination to establish a regular practice. Without a regular practice, it will take a long time before you see any real improvement, which will only create more doubt. At the root of self-doubt is the classic hindrance of doubts explained in the second interlude. There you'll also find the explanation for how to deal with doubt. But the basic antidote is simple: trust and perseverance, which requires inspiration and motivation. Creating solutions. The most effective way to overcome both procrastination and reluctance and resistance to practicing is to just do it. Nothing works as quickly or effectively as diligence. The simple act of consistently sitting down and placing your attention on the meditation object day after day is the essential first step from which everything else in the 10 stages flows. Then, once seated, you must train yourself gently and without self-judgment to actually meditate rather than engage in some more entertaining mental activity. Notice that I said Train yourself, not force or discipline yourself. Force, guilt, and willpower won't produce a sustainable practice, not least because of the negative emotions they stir up. Training yourself means working on your motivation and intentions until the simple acts of sitting down and meditating follow naturally. Then, you repeat those activities every day until they turn into habits. Once you start practicing regularly, you will be surprised by how quickly meditation becomes easier and more gratifying. Diligence helps start you on your way. But the real solution to these obstacles is learning to enjoy your practice. One simple, powerful way to do that is to intentionally savor all feelings of physical comfort and deliberately cultivate the pleasure that can be found in quietness. Take satisfaction in the fact that you have actually sat down to meditate. That is an accomplishment in itself. Too often, people approach meditation as though they were taking medicine. It tastes bad, but they grin and bear it because it's supposed to be good for them. Instead, make meditation into a pleasurable activity. If you're at ease and happy, you will be more successful than if you're tense and straining. The more you succeed in seeking out the pleasant aspects of meditation, the more motivated you'll be, and the more you will look forward to practicing. Everything else will fall into place. Doubt will disappear. You'll be inspired to meditate and can find plenty of time for it. Once you taste the joy and pleasure of practice, procrastination and resistance vanish. You'll look forward to your time on the cushion and guard it as something precious. As you progress to the higher stages, you won't just deliberately cultivate joy. It will eventually become your default state of mind. The practical steps. Along with just doing it and learning to savor your meditations, there are some practical steps to establishing a regular practice. These include choosing a suitable time and place, finding the best posture for you, cultivating the right attitude, and generating strong motivation. Setting a time and place. Ideally, you should meditate at the same time every day. You learn to associate that time with meditation and are less likely to procrastinate because you don't have to decide when to meditate. Choose a period that doesn't conflict with other activities and obligations. You may have to make some adjustments to your daily schedule. If the same time is simply impossible, pick a place in your normal routine. For example, before breakfast or after your regular exercise, that will be the same each day. Having a fixed period, whether set by the clock or your daily routine, is the best way to become consistent. Beginning meditators often forget to take their mental energy and clarity into account when picking a regular time to practice. Choose when you tend to be least agitated or tired. Everyone has their own natural rhythms, but generally the best time is early morning, or at least before 1 p.m. Most people prefer the period shortly after waking up in the morning, but before breakfast, since it's best to avoid meditating right after a meal. Next best is late afternoon or early evening. Early to mid-afternoon is often the hardest. The easiest way to make time for practice is by getting up a little earlier. You will feel refreshed and alert, and family and friends will be less likely to disturb you. Also, your mind won't be agitated by the stress and activity of daily life. Of course, getting up earlier only works if you go to bed earlier. No matter what time of day you choose, you'll have to make adjustments in other parts of your life to keep your commitment to practicing. It's an inescapable fact that the time you spend meditating is time you could have used for something else. If you don't make meditation a priority over some other activities, it just won't happen. Begin with shorter meditations. I suggest 15 or 20 minutes each day for the first week or two. Then increase the length of your sessions in 5-minute increments weekly or every few days until you reach 45 minutes. Use a meditation timer rather than looking at a clock, and train yourself not to look at the timer. Just listen for the bell. Some people find it easier to do 2 shorter meditations of 20 to 30 minutes each day. This is fine at first, but I strongly recommend at least one daily 45-minute sit as a minimum. This will provide a solid basis for your practice. As you advance through the stages and gain more skill, your meditations will become more interesting and enjoyable. You will eventually have no problem extending 45 minutes into an hour and practicing more than once a day if you choose. It's always best to work up gradually, rather than do too much at first and become discouraged. Once you have chosen a schedule, treat meditation like any other time-related commitment, such as work or school. Spend the designated period meditating and do nothing else. Make sure others know you will be unavailable at that time of day. To start with, you may encounter some resistance from your family or anyone not used to you being unavailable, but they will learn to adjust and may even decide to join you in practicing, especially when they start to notice the results of your practice. Most importantly, remind yourself that meditation time is your time, which you have set aside for yourself, a time free from the demands of the world. Considering how much meditation will improve your relationships with others, you shouldn't regard it as selfish. This personal time will ultimately benefit everyone you come in contact with. Also, if possible, practice with someone else. His or her commitment will reinforce yours and vice versa. However, if you have clearly established your intention, but your practice partner hasn't, it's better to end the practice arrangement. Meditation groups provide especially strong support, but usually don't meet every day. Finally, creating a regular place for meditation is just as important as setting a regular time. Choose a comfortable space where you won't be disturbed. It should be quiet and secluded enough to feel like your special meditation spot. The ideal situation is to have a place just for meditating. However, if that's not possible, it can also be a space you use for other things when you're done. But it should be a place where you can keep your meditation cushions, a shawl, or anything else you might use. Design and decorate it in ways that inspire you and remind you of why you're meditating and what you hope to gain. Some people like to set up an altar as well. It doesn't matter if it's religious or not. Its purpose is to inspire and motivate you in your practice. The right posture. Any comfortable position works for meditation, as long as it's not so comfy that you fall asleep. There are 4 traditional meditation postures: sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. They all work, and none is more correct than the others. Here, we'll focus on some pointers to help you find a good sitting position. You can meditate sitting in a chair, on a meditation bench, or on the floor. Full lotus position, legs crossed with your feet on top of your knees, provides a very stable position and helps keep you alert, but it's not necessary for success. Also, if you aren't flexible enough to sit in serious injury. The half lotus position, with legs crossed and only one foot on top of the opposite knee, is likewise very stable. Yet it, too, is not easy for many adult Westerners. The most popular meditation posture is probably sitting on the floor on a zafu, a Japanese-style round cushion, legs crossed, with ankles slightly tucked under the opposite thigh or knee. Alternatively, both knees and lower legs can be flat on the floor, one in front of the other, the so-called Burmese style. Low Japanese-style meditation benches called seiza are often used. If sitting on the floor proves difficult, then sit on a regular straight-backed chair. Experiment with different postures before deciding which you prefer. Also, there are many ways to fine-tune any position using pads and pillows, lumbar supports, meditation belts, or straps, height adjustments, and so on. Regardless of the position you choose, it's important there be as little physical strain or pain as possible, especially during longer sits. Expect some aches and pains merely from staying still, but try to minimize pain in general, and don't aggravate pre-existing injuries. Regard the discomforts that remain as part of your practice. By observing them, you'll learn how your body and mind interact. And be patient. As your practice develops, it will get easier to sit. Eventually, you will be able to sit for hours without any discomfort. You'll even get up feeling quite good without any stiffness or numbness. Remain as still as you can during sitting meditation, despite any discomfort. This can be challenging for a beginner, but always wait as long as you can before moving. Then, don't stop meditating when you change position, but rather move slowly and deliberately with full attention to the sensations in your body as you shift. You will likely discover that although whatever caused you to move in the first place has disappeared, another irritating sensation, possibly more intense, soon takes its place. You simply can't overcome all physical discomfort by adjusting your posture. The right attitude. To succeed, we need to approach the practice in a relaxed manner, free from judgment and expectations. Although we may start out this way, we can quickly slip into a critical, striving attitude when faced with problems such as mind wandering, sleepiness, and impatience. This attitude becomes the greatest impediment to our continued progress. When words like struggle or difficult come to mind, or if you feel like you're trying really hard but not making any progress, you'll know it's time to examine your attitude. Meditation is a series of simple tasks, easy to perform, that only need to be repeated until they bear fruit. So where is the sense of difficulty and exertion coming from? We usually describe a task as difficult because we're dissatisfied with our performance, which means we've started judging. Your expectations haven't been met, and maybe you're starting to doubt whether you'll ever succeed, which can sap your motivation. You're not actually struggling with meditating. You're struggling with unrealistic expectations and an idealized image of what you think should be happening. As a result, it feels like you're forcing yourself to do something you think you aren't very good at. If you believe those feelings, the ego self naturally wants to avoid blame. If you can convince yourself that you've been trying really hard, then the ego self doesn't feel guilty for not meeting its own self-imposed expectations. You can blame the teacher, the method, or concoct a story about how meditation isn't right for you. The real issue isn't that meditation takes too much effort or that something is innately wrong with you. It's your judgment and expectations. So let go of expectations and generate an attitude of faith, trust, and confidence. Faith in the method, trust that the results will come with continued practice, and confidence in your own ability. Joyful effort and diligence are the right attitude. Rather than striving, focus on the positive, pleasant elements of each session, joyfully repeating the same simple tasks as many times as needed to achieve the goal. This is precisely what diligence means. With spiritual practice in general, and meditation in particular, small measures repeated consistently produce huge results. The only place for great effort in meditation is in adjusting your schedule to actually spend more time practicing. Realize there are no failures in meditation except for actually failing to do the practice. As fellow teacher Stephanie Nash is fond of saying, a good meditation is one you did. The only bad meditation is one you didn't do. Take her wise advice to heart. Staying motivated. You wouldn't be hearing this right now if you weren't somehow inspired to explore meditation. Keep yourself inspired and find new sources of encouragement. Make a point of frequently reminding yourself why you decided to meditate and what the benefits are. Reflect on the admirable qualities of experienced meditators you know. Read books, go to lectures, and listen to recorded talks. Think about how you and everyone around you will benefit from your practice. Do all you can to stay motivated, just as you would if beginning an exercise program or learning to play an instrument. Also, support and inspire others, and let them support and inspire you. Practice with friends who share your interest in meditation, and set aside one day each week to get together for sitting, study, and discussion. Look into local meditation and Dharma groups, or start your own. As the Buddha once told his disciple Ananda, noble friends and companions are the whole of the holy life. When you feel you're ready to try more intensive practice, attend an organized retreat. Conclusion. You have mastered stage 1 when you never miss a daily practice session, except when absolutely unavoidable, and when you rarely, if ever, procrastinate on the cushion by thinking and planning, or doing something besides meditating. This stage is the most difficult to master, but it can be done in a few weeks. By following the basic instructions and cultivating the right attitude, you will develop joyful effort and diligence and establish a regular daily practice. The time and effort put into mastering this stage will pay off far beyond anything you can imagine. Here, a monk goes to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty place, sits down, folds his legs crosswise, keeps his body erect, and brings mindful awareness to the fore. With mindfulness, he breathes in. With mindfulness, he breathes out. Anapanasati Sutta. Second interlude. The hindrances and problems. All the mental skills needed in meditation are innate abilities we can selectively choose to cultivate. It's no different from acquiring any new skill, whether learning a science, a musical instrument, or how to throw a frisbee. We're actually just training ourselves in a way that favors certain inherent abilities over others. Think of meditation as mental training that exercises certain mental muscles so they respond more easily and better serve your needs. Just as the mental capacities we develop and use in meditation are completely natural and normal, so too are those activities of mind that can hinder or even defeat our practice. Traditional meditation literature identifies 5 specific hindrances to overcome before we can make real progress, and understanding them will prove invaluable. In daily life, these so-called hindrances actually serve necessary and useful purposes. Once you're familiar with them and how they work, it becomes obvious that neither suppression nor self-punishment will help you surmount such established and often helpful conditioning. On the other hand, positive reinforcements of other natural tendencies of the mind that oppose these hindrances works very well. Remember, everybody faces these challenges. They're not unique to you, and they're not personal shortcomings. More importantly, and very fortunately, these hindrances are well understood, and there are effective methods for resolving each and every one of them. The 5 hindrances. We can trace almost every problem in meditation to one or more of 5 innate and universal psychological predispositions, known as the 5 hindrances: worldly desire, aversion, laziness and lethargy, agitation due to worry and remorse, and doubt. They're called hindrances because they hinder efforts at meditating and create all kinds of problems in daily life as well. Therefore, as countless meditation manuals recognize, learning about them at the start is crucial. Even though these innate predispositions cause problems, we have them precisely because they were useful to our species as we evolved. The first step toward working with the hindrances skillfully is to understand the purposes they ordinarily serve. Second, you will cultivate 5 meditation factors: directed attention, sustained attention, meditative joy, pleasure, happiness, and unification of mind. Each of these acts as an antidote to one or more of the hindrances and contributes to a key goal of meditation: purifying the mind of these powerful facets of our biological programming and of their negative influences. We discuss the 5 meditation factors in depth later in the book. Make no mistake, overcoming these hindrances won't deprive you of the ability to survive and care for yourself. In fact, it's just the opposite. We have evolved other abilities, such as intelligence and cooperation, which fulfill the same needs more effectively and with fewer problems. As you stop relying on this once useful but now outdated programming, you will be more fully awake, better able to make clear-headed decisions, and take the appropriate actions. You will also come to realize that these hindrances are the basis for the stories and melodramas the mind concocts. Examples of stories rooted in worldly desire include, I need a beautiful house, and I want a successful career so I can be happy. Examples of stories rooted in aversion include, I hate rude people. It's not fair that they always get what they want. I don't want to be sick today, or I can't take this place anymore. Examples of stories arising from laziness and lethargy include, I'm too tired to help you right now, and it's too late, or a waste of time to try to finish that project. Examples of stories tied to the agitation due to worry and remorse include, what if I get caught? I'm ashamed of behaving that way, and I'm afraid. There are also self-defeating stories steeped in doubt, such as, I can't meditate, I'm too clumsy to play, and I'm not good enough, smart enough, fast enough, and so on. These are the stories that largely define our lives. But through meditation, we can question and eventually move beyond the narratives that hold us back. Familiarize yourself with the hindrances and their antidotes and learn to recognize them, not only in meditation, but in daily life as well. Your effort will pay off. 1. Worldly desire. Worldly desire, sometimes called sense desire, is when we pursue, delight in, and cling to the pleasures of material existence. This also means desiring to avoid their opposites. These desires include gaining material objects and preventing their loss, having pleasurable experiences and avoiding pain, achieving fame, power, and influence while avoiding infamy and impotence, and attaining the love and admiration of others while avoiding hatred and blame. In Buddhism, these are sometimes referred to as the 8 worldly dharmas. Here's an easy formula to help you remember them. Gain, loss, pleasure, pain, fame, obscurity, and praise, blame. This kind of desire is so fundamental a part of our biological programming that you may have never asked yourself why it exists, or questioned the effects it has, and whether you'd be better off without it. Worldly desire evolved because in the natural world, we have to strive for the resources we need to survive and reproduce. And that takes effort and motivation. We are programmed from birth to take pleasure in, desire, and pursue the very things and experiences that help us stay healthy, get a mate, and provide for our offspring. And we're social animals, so we take pleasure in and crave acceptance, status, and power because they're important to our survival and reproduction as well. The innate predisposition to desire whatever brings pleasure has made humans very successful. Yet when it comes to the effects of desire on your life, consider that the world has changed since these desires first evolved. Sex, food, especially high-calorie, fatty, sugary, and salty foods, and labor-saving devices are far more available today. Unrestrained desire leads not only to overconsumption and health and relationship difficulties, but many other issues that get revealed through meditation as well. That said, meditation doesn't involve repressing worldly desires. It gives us direct, experiential insight into the many ways that desire leads to pain and anxiety. This insight frees us from being ruled by desire, so we can cultivate its opposite instead, non-grasping and equanimity. Our new motivations will come from a place of generosity, loving kindness, and shared joy. We will discuss these positive qualities in later chapters. Worldly desire is so deeply embedded in us that you may have trouble imagining how we could live without it. However, as intelligent beings, we no longer need to be driven by compulsive desire in order to take care of ourselves. We can act effectively from a foundation of reason and equanimity. Furthermore, generosity, loving kindness, and sympathetic joy will only serve to enhance the survival of social beings like ourselves. Nor does eliminating desire lessen our experience of pleasure and happiness. Free from craving and filled with love, we become more fully present for positive experiences of every kind. The practices in this book will make you more aware of desire and give you many opportunities to practice abandoning it. Unification of mind is the meditation factor that specifically opposes and is opposed by the hindrance of worldly desire. As the mind becomes unified, worldly desire weakens and eventually disappears, not only during meditation, but from daily life as well. Experienced firsthand, this is an extraordinary transformation. You don't grow stoic, indifferent to pleasure, or lose your motivation, but rather are filled with joy, calm, and contentment. A unified and blissful mind, in other words, has no reason to chase worldly desires. You will live a more dynamic life, not constrained by craving, and you will be open to many more possibilities. 2. Aversion. Aversion, sometimes called ill will, is a negative mental state involving resistance. Its most extreme form is hatred, with the intent to harm or destroy. But any compulsion to get rid of or avoid unpleasantness, no matter how subtle, is aversion. Dissatisfaction and resentment, most forms of criticism, and even self-accusation, impatience, and boredom are forms of aversion. As with the other hindrances, aversion has been helpful for human survival. In the same way that we're programmed to take pleasure in and desire anything that supports our continued existence, we're programmed to experience displeasure and aversion toward what is potentially harmful. Aversion motivates us to avoid or eliminate what is unpleasant. Aversion hinders meditation in several ways. For instance, thoughts about someone we don't like, a dreaded future obligation, or regrets about the past easily become distractions during meditation. Judgment and impatience about our practice undermine our motivation and encourage doubt. In the later stages, subtle, unconscious traces of aversion can keep mental and physical pliancy from developing and prevent the meditation factor of pleasure, happiness from arising. Just as aversion opposes mental happiness and physical pleasure, the meditation factor of pleasure, happiness opposes aversion. Pleasure, happiness counters aversion by making negative states of mind impossible to hold on to, although they can return full force afterward. Simply put, there's little, if any, room for negativity in a mind filled with bliss. This is one of the reasons it's crucial to always seek out pleasurable feelings and encourage positive mental states during practice. You will learn to recognize aversion, replacing it with equanimity, acceptance, and patience. As these become your new predispositions, anger, cold-heartedness, and harmfulness are replaced by loving kindness, compassion, and harmlessness. You'll be astonished at the profound transformation as aversion disappears from your daily life. 3. Laziness and lethargy. Laziness mostly appears as procrastination. Its counterpart, lethargy, is a tendency toward inactivity, rest, and ultimately sleep. Both involve a lack of energy. Each causes different problems, but together they form a powerful hindrance. When we lack motivation, laziness and lethargy arise and keep us from making enough effort. Laziness is being resistant to doing some particular activity. Laziness is usually thought of as something negative, but it serves a purpose. It keeps us from spending time and energy on unnecessary, unproductive, or unpleasant activities. That time and energy can then be used for activities that contribute to happiness, survival, and reproductive success. Laziness also motivates us to use our skills and intelligence to come up with easier ways of doing things. Laziness arises when the cost of an activity seems to outweigh the benefits. Lethargy arises when there appears to be nothing interesting, exciting, or potentially rewarding going on. This also serves a purpose. Our body and mind need time to rest and recuperate. Rest is a better use of time than engaging in unproductive activities. Like laziness, lethargy is an evolutionary adaptation for conserving time and energy. The essence of lethargy is a progressive, involuntary loss of mental energy. The longer it continues, the harder it is to halt this downward slide. There are two antidotes for laziness and lethargy. The first is to motivate yourself by thinking about future rewards. This means weighing the costs against the benefits in a rational and intelligent way, rather than just trusting your emotions. For instance, whenever you have trouble bringing yourself to meditate, you can recall all the benefits that will come if you keep practicing. So, to deal with laziness, you need to muster enough motivation to actually begin the task you want to complete. Dealing with lethargy means having enough motivation to complete the task, rather than quitting or falling asleep. The second antidote is to just do it. This means that you plunge in, despite resistance, and then engage with the task fully. This works well against laziness because the power of laziness lies in procrastination. Before we start an activity, we can question its value and suggest alternatives that seem more appealing. Laziness makes it hard to start a task, but once we start, it's easier to continue. If we get interrupted, though, laziness can return and make restarting difficult. In any case, since laziness often fades when we begin a task, just doing the task is the antidote. Engaging fully with a task also works against lethargy by re-energizing the mind. But how effective this is depends on how quickly we recognize the onset of lethargy. The meditation factor of directed attention opposes laziness and lethargy, and vice versa. This hindrance impedes directed attention because we cannot easily direct a dull, tired, and unmotivated mind. In meditation, just doing it means you keep directing attention to the meditation object, countering procrastination and any loss of mental energy. Eventually, directed attention becomes powerful and automatic enough to completely overcome laziness and lethargy. 4. Agitation due to worry and remorse. We feel this kind of agitation when we're conflicted about the past or concerned about the future. This agitation can take the form of remorse for past unwise, unwholesome, or immoral activities, or for something we neglected to do. We may also have agitation due to remorse when fretting about the possible consequences. For example, you may feel remorse about an affair, either because of the pain your spouse would feel if he or she found out, or because of your own guilty conscience. Another form of this agitation to take is worry. Yes, we worry about the consequences of unwholesome actions, but we also worry about neutral actions. For instance, you may worry about whether or not you locked the back door. Even wholesome activities can cause anxiety. Perhaps you drove your friend to the hospital because she had the flu, but now you worry that you may have caught it. And once you start worrying, it often leads to more agitation as you wonder about how you might prevent or cope with the consequences of your imaginary scenarios. We also worry about very unlikely things, such as being caught in a terrorist attack. We can create endless combinations of worry and remorse for ourselves, all of which make us more agitated. Our predisposition to agitation due to worry and remorse helps spur us to correct things when possible, to protect ourselves when confronted by unavoidable consequences, and to prepare as best we can for an uncertain future. The mental discomfort also helps discourage us from creating similar situations in the future. However, if we can't put our agitated energy to good use, it makes us stressed because of our unresolved impulses to act. It also makes it harder to focus on anything else. Even when we consciously set aside or unconsciously repress worry and remorse, the mind remains agitated, affecting our body and emotions. Most of us are quite aware of the adverse effects of such stress. Yet in meditation, we discover directly how even negative actions from the distant past and long-forgotten worries can still produce agitation. They're like seeds buried in the unconscious furrows of the mind. Only when we become quiet enough can they emerge fully into the light of consciousness. Our past shapes our current perceptions and behaviors, and unresolved issues can stand in the way of peace of mind, joy, and happiness in the present. The best antidote to this kind of agitation is to take up the practice of virtue. When we behave virtuously, we don't create further causes for remorse or worry. But what is virtue? I don't mean morality in the sense of adhering to an external standard demanded by a deity or other authority, nor do I mean ethics, as in following a system of rules that prescribe the best way to act. Both moral principles and ethical codes can be followed blindly, without necessarily having to resolve your own bad mental habits. Rather, virtue is the practice of inner purification, which results in good behavior. If you think of the mind as an engine, the practice of virtue allows for the smoothest, most powerful performance. Likewise, every action that has an unskillful intent, even the most subtle, is like a small bit of grit reducing the mind's performance. As a virtuous person, you'll enjoy a peace of mind that enables you to reach the highest stages of meditation. Of course, there are many other benefits to being virtuous, but the practice of virtue is intrinsically rewarding. While training in virtue helps prevent misconduct in the future, the other remedy is doing whatever's possible to resolve any existing sources of worry or remorse by taking positive action. After you've done what you can, you must forgive yourself and seek forgiveness of others for what can't be resolved. Then, let go, once and for all, of these events and any judgments about them. A deep purification of the mind happens in meditation, and a large part of that purification involves putting to rest concerns about past misconduct, actual or perceived. Agitation due to worry and remorse is a specific state of mind. The meditation factor of meditative joy is also a state of mind. Since the two are opposites, they cannot exist together. The continued presence of this agitation interferes with the arising of meditative joy. Similarly, as the mind becomes more joyful with continued practice, agitation due to worry and remorse dies down. Joy overcomes worry because it produces confidence, optimism, and the certainty one can handle whatever challenges life may present. Likewise, joy overcomes remorse because a joyful person sincerely regrets any harm he or she has caused in the past and is eager to set things right. 5. Doubt. Doubt is healthy and valuable when it motivates us to question, investigate, and try things for ourselves. It keeps us from blindly accepting what others say or what seems true, and from being misled and taken advantage of. As a survival strategy, it keeps us from wasting our time and resources. Doubt begins as an unconscious mental process that focuses on negative results and negative possible outcomes. Once the mind decides a situation should be examined more closely, the emotion of doubt becomes part of conscious experience. If the feeling of doubt is strong enough, it compels us either to reevaluate an activity or to abandon it altogether. The purpose of doubt is simply to challenge the strength of our motivation, inviting us to test our current activities and intentions with reason and logic. Doubt becomes a hindrance if, instead of reevaluating the situation rationally, we respond only to the emotional uncertainty it creates. Too often, that keeps us from making the effort needed to validate something through our own experience. We can never succeed in any difficult task if we simply abandon whatever makes us uncertain. Doubt in this form is more like a perverse faith in failure that saps our will and undermines our intentions. For example, if you doubt your ability to succeed in meditation, your motivation will fade and you won't sit down to practice. The remedy for doubt is to use our reasoning abilities to envision the possibility of long-term success, countering the short-term emotional pressure of this hindrance. Once we've overcome the paralyzing effects of doubt, we can move forward with stronger motivation and through action achieve certainty. The ultimate remedy for doubt is the trust and confidence that come from success, and success depends on persistent effort. Although doubt is often projected onto other people and things, it often takes the form of self-doubt, a lack of confidence in our own abilities. Of the many forms doubt takes, self-doubt is so pervasive that it's worth addressing specifically and providing a few more assurances and antidotes. If you doubt your ability to concentrate, just remember that even though some people are calmer by nature than others, very few have such active minds that they cannot meditate. Even serious cases of attention deficit disorder don't prevent people from achieving the highest goals of meditation. If your mind is really more active than average, the first 3 stages will be the most challenging. But rest assured, not only can you master them, but the stages after will come much more easily. For some, self-doubt is about self-esteem.